Good afternoon. I'm calling back to order the meeting of the Portland City Council. It is 2 o'clock on Thursday, April 30th. Rebecca, can we please call the roll?
Canal.
Here.
Pertlegini. Ryan. Koyama Lane.
Here.
Murillo.
Here.
Novick.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Zimmerman. Avalos.
Present.
Smith.
Here.
Dunphy.
Here. And can we please read the rules of decorum?
I believe since we're continued
Oh, okay.
from yesterday.
Great. Rules of decorum still apply, people. Thank you. Can we please read item number 9?
Item 9, add identification of law enforcement officers code to prohibit facial covering, require badge visibility, and require identity verification for individuals conducting law enforcement activities. Add code chapter 23.30, document number 2026-111.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, this item was discharged from committee to a full council by the request of 4 councilors. As such, we will not be hearing a committee report today. Councilor Canal's staff will give us a brief presentation on the substance of the ordinance. Councilor Canal.
Thank you, Council.
Can I have a point of information? Is the link working for everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, Clerk, I need a new link. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, I'm excited to bring forward an ordinance to ensure that law enforcement in the city of Portland are unmasked, identified, and verified in partnership with my co-sponsor, Councilor Murillo. Portlanders, you have the right to know who's policing you. Today's ordinance, if adopted, will enshrine that right into law. That's a broad statement, so let me be clear about what we're all going to be asked to vote on. This is a modest, narrowly focused ordinance that will ensure we're in compliance with state law, requiring visible faces for law enforcement in most situations. In compliance with state law and our Portland values, requiring visible identification for law enforcement in all situations. It is also an ordinance that provides certainty to the public that Portland police officers will respond and look into it when someone is in our community claiming law enforcement authority, but without obvious indicators that they have that authority. Finally, it will provide public information on all the above through documentation. Colleagues, you will not be asked to vote to forcibly unmask other law enforcement agencies or pin identification to them physically. That is not in this ordinance. You will not be asked to vote for arrests of other law enforcement personnel, and any claim to the contrary you may hear today is false. But today we can build public trust in local government, help combat the infrequent but incredibly harmful phenomenon of law enforcement imposters who in the last year have robbed, abducted, sexually assaulted, and even killed people across the country, and help ensure that we know which people claiming to be law enforcement actually are, and create public information so Portlanders know who is policing us. I'm going to invite my staff member, Jack Jaden, to come up, and we'll start screen sharing as well. It's my senior policy advisor, Jack Jaden, joining us. I think we may also have, for a portion of this, Councilor Murillo's policy staffer as well. I'll let her introduce when she comes up. So we don't need to see this to get started on it, but the agenda for today's presentation, we're going to start with that presentation, move to invited testimony and the technical sponsors amendment, which brings the text up to date from what happened since the last time this was heard in committee on March 16th. Then after giving any other councilors who want to float an amendment time to do so, we'll hear from the public. And at Council President Dunphy's direction, we'll do technical Q&A and discussion together afterwards. It's a full house. It's a packed presentation, so we'll hopefully get through as much as possible. But my main focus today is to ensure that people understand the legislation, how straightforward it is, and don't get lost in misinformation. And we'll wait for slide 3 when you can, please. I don't know if Council President, if you had intro comments as well, we get there. Oh, no, we got it.
There we go.
If you can go 2 slides forward, please. Who are these people? We can't know, and right now we can't tell. Sometimes they're masked. They're smashing windows, kidnapping people into unmarked cars with license plates removed, stalking parents outside of schools, and spreading terror in our community. In some cases, we don't even know if they're law enforcement or imposters. Next slide, please. We know that the existence of masked agents, absent consistent verification, creates the conditions in which imposters can be more successful. We also know that ICE is not telling the city when and where they are operating. For most law enforcement agencies, there's a concept called deconfliction. It's a crucial process to alert one another when they are undercover or executing warrants or otherwise operating in places where they might be in the same place. This helps avoid accidental interference and safety concerns between law enforcement and for the public. ICE telling us where they're at wouldn't violate sanctuary policy because we're not helping them. We just want and need to know where they are in our community. And in the midst of heightened threats to life and safety that we're in today, this is more important than ever to recognize that context. When we started this process last summer, I think people were on board with the general concept, but unconvinced that this was a real fear, even though we had examples that you can see on the slide from other locations. But this is no longer a hypothetical risk here in Portland. 2 weeks before I presented to committee the first time, CBP agents shot 2 East Portlanders, and the week and a half after I presented last in committee, an imposter said he was an ICE agent and threatened a 7-Eleven cashier and his family in Southeast Portland. Next slide, please. So impersonators are a real risk. And like I said in committee when asked, why are we doing this ordinance? Even Donald Trump's FBI agrees that law enforcement should be identifying themselves in light of impersonators. Portlanders have a right to know that someone claiming to be law enforcement is not an imposter. You have a right to know that law enforcement agencies are operating transparently and accountably. You have the right to the information that you need if you wish to seek justice or a remedy in the future, like a lawyer needing to know which agency may have picked up their client. You have a right to know who's policing you. Next slide, please. This policy aims to clearly establish the community standard for accountable and transparent law enforcement in compliance with state law, the Law Enforcement Accountability and Visibility Act, or LEVA. It aims to prevent kidnappings or worse by imposters through consistent verification, fight fear and intimidation while building public trust in local government, and increase accountability and transparency. Just to give a little timeline of how we've gotten to this point, we've engaged stakeholders since this concept began. As you can see, there's been a lot of back and forth. This is the next slide, sorry. Actually, it might be 2 more. Yeah, this is a little context to the legislation that's already happened. 1 more, please. Yeah. So we've engaged stakeholders since this concept was first brought together. As you can see, this started in August. In September, we started meeting with people across the administration, particularly the Public Safety Service area. I want to thank everyone at the Public Safety Service area who's given feedback on this. It's been really helpful to ensure that things can be done operationally. Mayor's office, city attorney's office, et cetera. We started on this before LEVA at the state. And so I wanted to just flag as we go to the next slide how that got changed, because we presented what was then version 6, we're on 8 now, to the Council's Community and Public Safety Committee in January. We participated in some of the conversations around LEVA at that time. From January to March, we continued to revise and engage and made a version 7, which we brought forward in March. And in April, we created an 8th version, which is the one before us today, incorporating further feedback from the Public Safety Service area, as well as updates that needed to bring this legislation in line with LEVA, definition updates, things like that. After the 4-counselor release that moved it here, we have brought this ordinance forward. There is a technical amendment that needs to bring the March version in line with today, and today is the first reading. Next slide, please. I'm going to walk through the policy's 4 parts now. We call this the right to know who's policing you because it is so much more than just unmasking. There are 4 key components to the policy: unmasking, identifying and verifying officers, and documenting incidents. I'll go through each of these. First, we're establishing a standard that masks are not commonly acceptable for law enforcement in the city of Portland. It's marked with a check mark on that previous slide because the state already established the law in House Bill 4138. And in a few minutes, you're going to hear from the primary sponsor of that, Representative Farah Chaichi, who's here with us. It also already includes common exceptions such as medical reasons, undercover operations. Thanks to feedback and engagement from the Public Safety Service area, Police Bureau, we've even clarified some of the parts with the exceptions that the state didn't address. This ordinance used their suggestion of a set temperature, for example, as an exemption from masking rules when it's below a certain temperature. Next slide, please. It benefits our community when people are identified, and whether or not other levels of government are identified or not, it increases trust in local government when Portlanders can clearly and visually distinguish PPB from other agencies. We've taken much of the identification standards from existing police bureau directives here in Portland. There are some changes. We've met the state identification requirements from the LEVA bill. We go a step further as well by requiring name tags with last names, visible badge numbers, and clear agency insignia. The ordinance also establishes indicia of authority or legitimate markers for law enforcement authority, including the pairing of identification with authority. Again, with Melissa Hortman, the Speaker of the Minnesota State House who was killed last June, the imposter had uniform and a squad car. We need to make sure that someone not only looks the part, but that they have some verification from the agency. And that leads me to the next slide. When officers cannot tell if someone is a legitimate law enforcement officer and that person is doing something that would be illegal for a civilian, but not law enforcement, such as smashing a window, forcefully grabbing someone, throwing them into an unmarked vehicle, this can be a disturbing scene. This ordinance requires that our officers do a preliminary investigation. This is where a PPB officer in the field would do, they would call their leadership and someone would call DC, Salem, other agencies to determine, is this person DEA, ICE, State Patrol, whoever. If reasonable suspicion exists, then they would also be able to do a full investigation. We've retained the federal legal standard, including officer discretion for this particular test, and this requires only that it starts with a call to dispatch to try and verify. The verification section does not directly regulate nor seek to the conduct of anyone but Portland City employees, ensuring that we as a city take on the responsibility of verification of law enforcement authority. This fits into our existing responsibilities to follow and enforce laws around impersonation, kidnapping, and more. Now, it's true that we cannot directly prevent federal officers from exercising legitimate law enforcement authority that they have been given by the federal government due to the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. It's also true that if someone wants to claim supremacy protects them, they need to first prove that they are legitimate law enforcement. As a result, this section is legally compliant with federally set rules around reasonable suspicion because officers are not being directed to arrest or detain. But they are recording the steps that they do to look into it and the information they receive, which leads us into the next slide, documentation. Documentation occurs through written reports and/or body-worn cameras with details about the person or officer that they investigated and indicia of authority if it was observed. This provides an accounting of the reasons PPB officers did or did not have reasonable suspicion of impersonation or other crimes, and accountability that this ordinance is being followed and the system is being used. It creates a record that could be used by the Attorney General at a later date. The ACLU has also advised that they have interest in this sort of information too. The ordinance serves as a legal structure and institution beyond just us, because justice can one day be served if we set our future selves up for it. This ordinance is not a mere masking ban. Together, all four of these components will get us to the point where you know who is policing you. Next slide, please. A note about legality, we did not do this policy alone. Along with organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union, who you'll also hear from, we'll also receive feedback. Along with organizations, sorry. Yeah.
Thanks, folks. Thank you for raising attention to our security. Security will take care of it. Thank you very much for enforcing the chamber rules, security folks. Councilor Canal.
Yeah, thank you. We didn't do this policy alone. Along with organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union, who you're going to hear from, we also receive feedback from the Oregon Justice Research Center and our own city attorney's office. And at the risk of diminishing our own role, the city attorney's office authored well over half of this code's exact text and therefore ensured that it was in legal compliance, and we also ensured that it includes language for both labor and bargaining compliance. I want to take a chance to talk about a couple of the things we've heard in the past and how we address those. And I'll just go through these starting with the next slide. And I'm not going to read everything on these slides, but it's all available online for those who are interested. While it was claimed that this could inhibit use of law enforcement masks for things like health-related, N95s, KN95s, or hazmat usage, masking required for medical or public health purposes is explicitly allowed, and there's references to the occupational safety, as well as ordinance clearly applies only to law enforcement. Next slide, please. There was a conversation around, well, do we have to do this at all? Because the state created LEVA, and that means we no longer have to do an ordinance. In LEVA, law enforcement agencies are required to maintain a masking policy within 180 days of the the bill being signed. It also explicitly says that it's a floor, not a ceiling, and in specific places, local jurisdictions are permitted to go above and beyond the minimum standard. Next slide, please. I talked about the supremacy clause a little bit earlier. I want to be clear that that while it's been claimed that we can't require PPB to hinder a federal investigation or arrest ICE agents, and that's true, the ordinance doesn't do that. And we can say all the things that are legal or not legal, but if it's not relevant to the ordinance, that's the concern here, because it's not in the ordinance. State masking and ID rules establish a community standard for verification. There's no requirement to hinder a federal investigation. In fact, quite the opposite. In multiple places, the ordinance states that once someone is verified as any level of law enforcement, PPB will disengage. And I also want to just draw attention that creation of standards through this process has both upward and downward implications on legal risk. And what that means is, in the hypothetical scenario that I think has been brought up in committee of fear that somebody's going to be dragged into court, it would be helpful for that city employee to be able to say, I was told by the state and by the local government that this is what I had to do. And that's a positive for that person. Next slide, 20. Other jurisdictions. I'm not going to run through all of this, but they're all on here. Other jurisdictions, we already have different rules than other cities, but when we ask for partners to come in and assist us, we all enforce the law in the place that they're doing it, and not necessarily the place of their employment. Next slide. Violations are not criminal. I want to make this very clear. Violating this ordinance would not be a criminal offense, and we wrote that in explicitly. Instead, it requires documentation and conversations with supervisors around things like exemptions. We were told that verifications were illegal. In committee, this came up. We followed the federal reasonable suspicion standard and broke up verification into two parts to be legally compliant. A preliminary investigation in which any interaction is purely voluntary for the potential imposter, and a possible full verification should reasonable suspicion exist. And finally, we got criticized for putting too many mask exemptions in on this, and I'll just say these exemptions were based off of, it's the next slide. The exemptions were based off of state law and legal adaptations that we created based on our conversations with the Public Safety Service area to maintain operational capacity and avoid undue restriction. I'll also note that just like with any other ordinance, once we pass something, there's administrative rules that any bureau would have to implement in order to operationalize it. Okay, next slide. I just want to point out a couple of things here. Hundreds of people emailed, called, or reached out to my office, and while that's something that might not be visible to colleagues here, there were also 280 plus written testimonies over the life of this ordinance so far, and 100 plus live testimonies. That excludes today's number. We also had lots of community-based organizations who provided feedback. Some of those are here today, and thank you in advance to those who are going to testify. And on the next slide, we have some themes, and I want to note that the last two are things that people did ask us to go further in some cases or have distrust that this would be implemented. We didn't necessarily share the same feeling, but I wanted to share it in the sense of being upfront about what the feedback we received here. There was a lot of commitment to transparency and accountability we heard in those testimonies, as well as some personal stories that you can watch the testimony in the future if you'd like to see what they said. And with that, I do want to play one little clip from an earlier testimony because 7 of my colleagues were not in that committee. And I think, are you ready to? And these are from March 17th.
Good afternoon. My name is Allison Killeen. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the pastor at Salt and Light Lutheran in Northeast Portland, District 3. And I want to tell you a story about why I'm in support of this ordinance. 3 years ago, when I started this role at Salt and Light, one of the first people who I met was Mariana. She and her 3-year-old daughter were attending an event at church where I had also brought my 3-year-old son. And as our children played together, we talked about what it might look like for our worship services to center our children. Mariana joined a leadership team, and together we developed this child-centered service. It still goes on monthly, the third Sunday of the month, except one thing is different, which is that Mariana no longer comes to services. because Mariana is afraid of being kidnapped by ICE. Mariana doesn't come to church anymore. She's had to stop working. She cannot take her daughter to school. She cannot take her daughter to the park. And she only leaves her home for the most essential outings. Her absence has left a tear in the fabric of our community and in so many communities like ours. So this is why I support this bill, because we need to know specifically who specifically is kidnapping our community members and specifically who is terrorizing our community members out of the fabric of our community life. We need to be able to unmask them and hold them accountable now. So I want to know, if it's not the police who are to do this work, who? This is what it looks like to be the gold standard. So I support this ordinance, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on it.
I think we're still working on one tech thing here.
Hello, my name is Junha Kim, and I live and work in District 2. I am a pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Portland, and I'm here to demonstrate my strong support for the right to know who's policing you ordinance. I'm a first-generation immigrant from Korea and have been a naturalized citizen for over 15 years. I was raised by and have lived with communities made up of immigrants from countries all around the world. And I heard from many of these testimonies, both in favor and against this ordinance, using the phrase fear and uncertainty. And I want to name that fear and uncertainty is a fear and uncertainty that immigrant communities have had to navigate for generations. Because that fear and uncertainty is not only because there is a lack of transparency and accountability from the law enforcement agencies, but because those law enforcement agencies are violently detaining, kidnapping families and families from their homes. Myself and other immigrant communities are asking for this policy because it is simply an alleviation of this fear and uncertainty. One tool that we might be able to use in alleviating that fear and combating that uncertainty ourselves. Because the fear of being detained, the fear of being kidnapped, the fear of being sent to another state, the uncertainty of whether or not a child's father comes home, the uncertainty of driving without your passport, the uncertainty of whether or not I carry around my correct documentation, including my passport, every day. And it is clear from this hearing, as it has been for many decades, that law enforcement wants little to do as possible to protect me. And so this policy will be at least one more tool I can use and immigrant communities can use to stand up for themselves, so that they can try to hold the law enforcement agencies accountable themselves. Because again, as Reverend Allison names, if not the police, then who? Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll go back to the last couple slides here. And those are both from March 17th. And I want to just point out, we have so many people have testified, and it's kind of a flaw of the system that we often have to ask people to keep coming back to ask for the same thing over and over again. I see you, I hear you when you come in and you do it, and we wanted to get a couple, but just because we didn't play the clip doesn't mean we didn't hear you back then either. I just want to acknowledge that. We do have a couple invited community speakers I want to invite up here, and I'll note a late change on one of the names as we bring them up. So if we could invite up our panel. We have Oregon State Representative Farah Chaichi. We have Ethan Crow from the American Civil Liberties Union of Oregon. We have Ana Munoz from Latino Network. We have Alaide Vilches Ibarra from Together Lab, and we have Alyssa Walker-Keller from Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition. And as they're doing it, I'll just go to the next slide, let everybody get settled for a second, and that's the last slide. Or one more, actually, sorry. But I do share the thank you. All right, and we can drop the slides, and Representative Chaichi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, City Council. Merry May Day Eve to you all. For the record, I'm Farah Chaichi. I'm the state representative from Beaverton and Aloha, House District 35. In this last legislative session, I introduced and championed House Bill 4138, the Law Enforcement Accountability and Visibility Act, also known as LEVA, with the help of all of the community organizations and folks you see today. Our bill was signed into law on March 31st by the governor, and I'm here today to support Councilor Canal's right to know ordinance to continue the legislature's work on this issue and ensure that in Oregon, power is exercised in the open and in service of the people. LEVA came to be because our communities were calling on us to meet this moment. Fascism isn't knocking at our doors anymore. It's literally knocking them in without warrants. This bill was created to meaningfully work to protect scared Oregonians by establishing uniform minimum standards for all law enforcement operating in Oregon, local, state, and federal law enforcement. So authority is visible, accountable, and transparent. I'm proud of the work that we accomplished with LEVA, but I'm also here today to testify to the fact that there's more work to do. HB 4138 was always meant to set a statewide standard and to be the floor for local government and jurisdictions to expand upon. That was the intention. I don't like preemptions on you guys. We can't do everything, so this is a floor. The passage of LEVA reflects not only the hard work of community partners and advocates, but also numerous compromises. During the many long and arduous negotiations with opponents of the bill and other legislators, we fought to maintain a minimum standard of transparency, knowing that local governments could expand on this work to meet the needs of their unique constituencies. I introduced LEVA based on what I consider to be a simple and widely shared belief, that when someone has the power to stop you, question you, detain you, or arrest you, you deserve to know who they are and who they work for. In its unamended form, LEVA included granting local and state law enforcement legal backing to investigate potential violations of misrepresentation of a law enforcement agency. While it did not mandate that officers were required to investigate those violations, it stated that they may choose to investigate these instances. This portion of the bill was paramount to impacted community members and advocates, and they were important to me as a state legislator representing one of the most diverse districts in Oregon. Amending this out of the bill came after much negotiation. However, the community decided that it was critical that the state pass some protections, however imperfect, for families living in constant fear of masked agents. It's my hope that this body can build on the work done in the short session to deliver even stronger protections for our most vulnerable neighbors. I'm kind of confused by some of the dissent that claims this ordinance should be abandoned in order to implement House Bill 4138, since, like I said, it was intended to serve as a statewide standard and operate as a floor, not a ceiling for local jurisdictions. This is a point that we made extremely clear in the process of passing this bill. I asked Legislative Council many times, I checked in many times to make sure that we were not going to cut you all off, not just you, anyone. And we were assured that that was the case. Portland, like every city in Oregon, is unique and will benefit from legislation crafted with its specific communities in mind. This ordinance empowers Portland to set your own standards that build upon the fundamental principle of LEVA. Regarding this recent California Ninth Circuit Court ruling, I'm not an attorney and I'm certainly not a constitutional scholar, but I do want to address that this is just a preliminary injunction and currently pending appeal. There's no final ruling and the court's full analysis still hasn't come out yet. Let me be clear, nothing happening in the California courts is currently preventing the implementation of LEVA statewide in Oregon or the Portland City Council from moving forward with the ordinance being discussed today. Should a final ruling and opinion come down from the courts stating federal law enforcement need not abide by the requirements of LEVA or mandates from local jurisdictions, this ordinance will still have value in regulating how our law enforcement officers are operating and in signaling to the community who they can trust. We've heard anecdotally and from community members doing this work on the ground that there are marginalized community members who no longer feel safe reporting instances of domestic violence, assault, or other issues because they can no longer easily differentiate between legitimate local and state law enforcement officers and potential imposters. Through the passage and implementation of House Bill 4138, and ordinances, such as the one before you today, the public will know that legitimate local and state law enforcement officers must not hide their faces behind masks, except for narrow exceptions, and must display minimum uniform standards that include a form of individual identification and what jurisdiction or agency they work for. Oregonians have time and time again voted with their values to say that they support immigrant and refugee communities. At a time when the community is rightfully demanding accountability and visibility from law enforcement and public entities, we must meet this moment and send a powerful message to protect vulnerable Oregonians and build trust in local and state law enforcement. I'm here today to urge your support of Councilor Canal's Right to Know ordinance as a continuation of the legislature's work to ensure that in Oregon, power is exercised in the open and in service to the people. I am happy to answer questions if you want.
Prefer to go to Rule 5?
Yeah, Councilor, I'd love for the rest of the panel to lead us off for the public testimony, if that's right. And we can just very quickly, I apologize to all of you, but very quickly we'll get through our business because there's a couple of technical amendments that are needing to be discussed. Colleagues, what I would like to do is I'd like to have us present the amendments. So I'm going to, Councilor Canal, I'm going to turn it to you first. My priority is to get through testimony today, and then we can have council discussion after that.
Matt, can we have the 4 other panelists before questions for Representative Chaichi? Yeah,
I
that's
see.
what-
Yeah, sorry. I had invited testimony later on my run of show, so.
My apologies. I think we might have had 2 versions.
All good.
Is it okay to?
Then let's continue this. We'll get you all through, and then we will move to amendments.
Thank you so much.
problem.
So I think, Ethan, you're next.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Ethan Crow with the ACLU of Oregon, here in place of Jessica Maravilla, who couldn't be here today, but has appreciated the time of many stakeholders and folks in this body that she's had the opportunity to speak with. We strongly support the Right to Know ordinance. At the ACLU of Oregon, our work is grounded in protecting civil liberties and ensuring that government power is exercised transparently and within constitutional limits. When someone exercises the authority to detain, question, use force, the public has a right to know who they are and what agency they represent. Transparency builds trust, protects both community members and law enforcement, and ultimately keeps everyone safe. This past legislative session, Oregon took a major step forward by passing House Bill 4138, the Law Enforcement Accountability and Visibility Act, LEVA for short. From the beginning, LEVA was designed as a floor, not a ceiling. Local governments were always intended to build on that framework based on the needs of their communities, and Portland's need is profoundly clear. Right now, people in this city are experiencing enforcement actions where they cannot identify who is detaining them, what agency is involved, or whether that person is lawfully exercising authority. That creates real harm. It fuels fear, increases the risk of escalation, and opens the door to impersonation. Just as importantly, we lack even the most basic data. There is no consistent way to verify or record these interactions. Law enforcement is not consistently dispatched to these calls, and we do not have a reliable way to track how often this is happening. That gap undermines accountability and makes it harder to build effective public safety responses. This ordinance addresses that gap. It requires that when enforcement actions occur, officers verify and record identity and agency, a basic safeguard that protects both the public and officers. We want to acknowledge Mayor Wilson and his office. We appreciate the ongoing engagement and the shared commitment to getting this right. These are complex issues and we value the dialogue. At the same time, we want to respond directly to some concerns that have been raised. A recent federal court ruling has raised concerns that this type of policy may not withstand legal scrutiny, particularly as it relates to federal officers, and that moving forward now could create a risk for the city. It is important to be clear about what that ruling actually does. It is a preliminary injunction pending appeal, not a final determination on the constitutionality of these policies. The court's full analysis is still pending. And even if portions of these types of laws are ultimately narrowed as applies to federal officers, that does not undermine the core value of this ordinance. Strong identification and masking limits for state and local officers send a clear message to communities that transparency and accountability are non-negotiable. This ordinance does not interfere with federal law. It sets transparency standards for how enforcement operates within Portland. At the end of the day, this ordinance ensures that no one, exercises the power of the state in our communities or remaining anonymous. LEVA set the foundation. This ordinance is Portland doing its part to carry that work forward in response to what communities are experiencing here right now. Because this is not abstract. This is about whether a parent knows who's stopping their child, whether a neighbor can trust that the person at their door is acting lawfully, whether people in this city feel protected or targeted by the systems meant to serve them. Transparency is not a burden, it is a baseline. It is how we build trust, how we prevent harm, and how we ensure that power is used responsibly. Portland has the opportunity to lead here, to affirm that in this city, accountability is not optional and safety does not come at the expense of our rights. Respectfully, we urge your support. Thank you.
Anna might be next.
Thank you. Hi, buenas tardes. Good evening. My name is Ana Munoz. I'm with Latino Network. I'm Director of Community Defense, and I am here to strongly support Council Member Canal's proposal on the right to know ordinance. In other words, to increase transparency in our local law enforcement tactics. And we urge you to do the same. There shouldn't be any shortcuts in law enforcement tactics because mistakes can cost someone their life. When we interact with law enforcement, whether during a traffic stop or any other encounter, we expect basic safeguards. We expect to see a face. We expect a name spoken or clearly displayed. We expect the presence of body or dash cams to ensure accountability and safety for everyone involved. We expect access to police reports after the fact. And we expect that any changes to policing policies are subject to public scrutiny, legislative debate, and oversight through established bodies like DPSST. When we don't have basic safeguards from our local law enforcement, you are opening opportunities for imposters to act as the authority. Imposters who are led by anti-immigrant and white supremacy beliefs. Imposters have been known to harass, attack, and threaten immigrants, leaving them too afraid to call the police. This type of terrorizing should not exist in our communities at all. Many immigrants and refugees are here escaping religious persecutions, systemic gender-based violence, war, and civil conflicts. Do you truly believe that they trust law enforcement? No. And they don't trust someone that has their face covered, someone that don't identify themselves, right? I mean, that's terrorizing already. So don't have our local law enforcement act like federal agents, because that's exactly what they're doing. Portland must be clear and consistent. No matter the jurisdiction, anyone acting in a law enforcement capacity must uphold these standards and treat all residents with dignity, respect, and full due process under the law. Regardless of individual beliefs on immigration policy, the reality is that these recent chaotic and lawless enforcement actions are eroding trust at a profound level. This erosion is not limited to immigrant communities, though they are disproportionately affecting U.S. citizens and Native Americans as well. Legislations like this, championed by Councilor Canal, thank you very much, is a critical step towards restoring and keeping trust among law enforcement. It helps mitigate the chaos and harm, establish clear expectations, and reaffirm Portland's commitment to accountability, transparency policies. Portlanders will be able to rely on the simple but essential truth that our local law enforcement will not operate without identification, without oversight, and without accountability. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council President and members of the Council. My name is Alaide Vilchis Ibarra, and I'm co-director of Together Lab, an organization that builds community power to transform systems that exploit people and the planet. We build that power with immigrants, with youth and the people who love them, and with faith leaders, a few of which you will see testified today. I'm here to urge you to support the Right to Know ordinance. In the past year, Together Lab has given over 50 Know Your Rights or ICE Watch trainings to our communities in every single one of your districts. I have sat in rooms with lawyers reviewing heartbreaking footage of ICE's brutal tactics alongside other immigrant defenders so that we can update our trainings and make sure that people have the latest information to keep our community safe. And I've had the privilege and great responsibility to hold the grief and the terror of your constituents as Operation Black Rose took over 1,000 of our neighbors. We support this ordinance because every single place we have given our presentations, the same questions come up. What if ICE doesn't leave my house after I don't open my door? Can I call the police? What if the person who is harassing me is an imposter? Is police working with ICE? My answer always has to walk the line between pointing the sanctuary law that so many of us in this room organized to pass and the reality that police in our community have never prioritized the safety of immigrants and communities of color. People want concrete answers, but what lies under these questions is a deeper longing to know that someone cares about our safety, that someone will actually protect us. This ordinance will help us verify agents, have access to recorded footage, and have data that we need so that when we are on the other side of this, and I hope we get to be on the other side of this, we can hold accountable the people who perpetrate this harm. And also to make sure that today it supports our cases. I can imagine for you all in a position of power, it is easy to intellectualize this ordinance. And I know you want to be good stewards of our funds and the laws of our city. But for those of us who are part of the immigrant community, the rapid response networks, mutual aid groups, community organizations, and faith communities who see our neighbors being taken, and for me, who has to stand in a room full of people as people are signing papers, giving away custody of their children in case that ICE takes them, this ordinance is not just an intellectual exercise. It is about our city fighting for us and fighting for what is right. It is about city councilors and a mayor that is willing to take the same risk that so many of us already are taking, and about the values that we hold sacred as Portlanders, the values that we show up for our neighbors. So I urge you to vote yes on this ordinance and join the thousands of us in your city that are already taking risks, showing up for our neighbors, and in big and small ways, all of us are building a city where immigrants will always belong. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Alyssa Walker-Keller. I'm the coordinator at PIRC, the Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition, and I'm here today to show PIRC's support for the Right to Know Who's Policing You ordinance. We're grateful to Councillor Canal and his team for inviting us and other partners, some of whom are with me here at this table, to be part of the review process for this proposed ordinance. Our perspective is formed by the on-the-ground observations of more than 20,000 phone calls to our hotline last year from people who were looking for resources and reporting possible ICE activity. We've borne witness to the confusion and lack of clarity due to the actions of agents who dress in plain clothes, drive vehicles with no license plates, and of course, notably, are covering their faces and do not provide identification when asked. At least 287 detentions were reported to PIRC in Portland proper since July. That's nearly 30 more than the last time that I gave testimony on this ordinance. This is very much an issue that is impacting your constituents. PIRC's incredible dispatchers are telling us how challenging it is to receive phone calls from callers who are unsure who they are dealing with. Many hotline calls involve unmarked or suspicious vehicles and people, and uncertainty means lost time. Our dispatchers have shared that police verifying whether someone is a federal agent could serve as a deterrent to would-be imposters, because we have received reports of imposters interrogating young people on the max, and then this past month when we saw an ICE imposter threatening a 7-Eleven clerk during a robbery in Southeast Portland. Having PPB officers ascertain with clarity who is involved in a detention or provide documentation of these violations will also be of great value to the families who are seeking justice when ICE has broken the law. And it will deter these imposters from copycat behavior that creates fear and undermines our community's safety. The reality is that everyday courageous Portlanders are already taking it upon themselves to ask agents who it is who is detaining their neighbors and loved ones. Thousands of Oregonians have been trained to do just this already. So it makes sense that the Portland Police would be mandated to verify the indicia of authority of agents to detain people. This will help protect your constituents. This will show our community who local police are choosing to protect. And we may not be able to prevent ICE masking, but we can reduce the uncertainty and fear in our community with clear ordinances that visibilize who it is. I shared this story in the committee hearing, and I think it bears repeating. This issue was never more real to me personally than the moment that I accompanied the very next person who left court and walked to her vehicle after the first detention in immigration court last June. I will never forget the terror on that woman's face as she met me at the doors of the court. Who was that, she asked me. I think it was ICE, I explained. Well, why were they wearing masks? What happened to the girl in the pink sweater? These masked men had walked in, surrounded a woman, took her away, and left everyone stunned, unsure what had happened or why, and there was no one there with the authority stopping them and asking why they had done so. Like so many others, this woman shared with me that she never thought that this would happen in the country that she had fled to. I ask that this council move this proposal to be an ordinance. Local law enforcement can alleviate confusion, both in their transparency of identification and by being given the responsibility to document crimes against Oregonians. Your vote today communicates to this city that we are willing to take the steps necessary to know who is kidnapping our neighbors off the streets. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for testifying. So, colleagues, as I mentioned, there are some amendments floating on the table. I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Canal to introduce his amendment, and then Councillor Novick, I will also turn it over to you to introduce your amendment, and then we will move on to public testimony, 2-minute sheets, and I believe we have 42 people signed up to testify. So, Councillor Canal.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, everyone, for testifying. 2 quick notes before I get into the amendment. One, there is a 6th invited testifier's connection has not happened yet, so we'll get that as soon as they're available. And the other thing is, for those who may be watching this at home or watch the video later, there is a lot of spirited democracy going on outside this room and outside this building. And I hope that we'll match the spirit of that, if not necessarily the style, inside this building as well. So when we made this amendment, I just want to transparently note that we put up an amendment on April 16th. It's still posted there for transparency. We updated it yesterday, so it's what was already there and then some. It originally had a track changes version and a clean version at the bottom in the same document. The new one, there is a scrivener's error in the clean version, so please use only the track changes version up top. I just wanted to make sure we're using that. This amendment updates definitions to better align with the recently passed House Bill 4138. It more clearly describes preliminary investigations to make clear the actions that PPB must take, which is including calling dispatch, and also those that may be taken to avoid risk exposure from misunderstandings of the code and clearing up the language. It clarifies the reporting requirements for police actions taken under the verification section. It explicitly exempts, which we didn't originally, we missed that. It explicitly exempts the entire section from a different section of City Code 1.01.110, which is the code violation penalties. I mentioned that earlier in the slides. It updates language to clarify what is being verified, to very clearly say when the thing that we're verifying is authority to operate as a law enforcement agent. And it clarifies legislative intent because while the values haven't changed, some of the very specific actions have. We understand that legislative intent needs to be made very clear, and so we're trying to make that clear both in the presentation and in the text around what needs to be visibly displayed, including last name, badge, permanent identifying number, with minor word changes so that terms make sense both legally and operationally, because sometimes a word can be interpreted differently by the people on the ground and our attorneys here in the city. And so I'm happy to answer questions about it when we get to that point. With the specific thing, as you scroll through, you may have specific questions, but that's the broad strokes of what it does. And it is a sponsors amendment, so what I would be asking colleagues to do is have the courtesy we normally do where we allow the sponsor to start the debate wherever their proposal is, and then feel free to amend it, of course, as the conversation continues.
Thank you, Councilor
President.
Thank you, Councilor Knoll. Councilor Novick.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I want to follow up on the comments made about the Ninth Circuit decision. The Ninth Circuit decision is actually devastating, and unless it's overturned, we are out of luck. The Ninth Circuit decision was a decision on a preliminary injunction, so it is technically a preliminary decision, and the court just said that the California state law, which closely mirrors the Oregon state law and this ordinance, is likely unconstitutional. But the language the court used, if they stick with it, is devastating. Section 10 of the No Vigilantes Act requires any non-uniformed federal law enforcement officer, with narrow exceptions, to visibly display identification while performing federal law enforcement duties. Section 10 of the No Vigilantes Act attempts to directly regulate the federal government in its performance of law enforcement operations. It purports to override the federal government's power to determine whether, how, and when to publicly identify its officers. The Supremacy Clause bars direct state regulation of the federal government, and that is precisely what the No Vigilantes Act does. This opinion is an opinion of a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit, which is the way things normally work out. So it could be appealed to the full Ninth Circuit, but it was a unanimous opinion by 3 judges, including an Obama appointee, who ironically is the first Asian American woman to serve on an appellate court. So the odds that this will be overturned are low. People just need to know that. We need to be honest.
Just point of order on this. Is the amendment about the Ninth Circuit court ruling? Are you overturning it in your amendment?
No, I just thought that it's important for people to know. So I'll proceed with my amendment.
The ACLU disagrees.
Okay. They would at some point like the city attorney to come up. So,
Colleagues.
So
we're doing amendments right now.
Yeah.
So all right. I still think that we should try to pass something, because miracles do happen. Maybe the Ninth Circuit opinion will be overturned. My amendments do several things. My amendments, first of all, I want to credit Councilor Knoll for all the work that he's done in this, and particularly having to deal with the passage of the state law after we've been working on a local law for months and months, and incorporating that and consulting, et cetera. One thing that my amendment does is close what I see to be significant loopholes, one of which is borrowed in this ordinance from the state law, and one of which I think is separate. Loopholes that I think ICE could drive trucks through. The proposed ordinance applies the identification requirements to people engaged in law enforcement activities, and that is defined as criminal law enforcement. ICE is largely involved in civil enforcement of immigration laws. So my amendment says that it applies to people engaged in criminal law enforcement or civil law enforcement when that enforcement involves detention. Councilor Knoll's identification requirement applies to officers in uniform. ICE is often not in uniform. In fact, I'm not even sure they have uniforms, so this changes that as well. Also, I thought it was important to have a more specific enforcement provision. The state law's enforcement provision is that people can bring citizen suits to enforce it, leaving it up to individual people. Councilor Knoll refers to various administrative or civil processes. I want to say specifically that this ordinance authorizes the mayor to bring a lawsuit against any violating agency to get injunctive relief to force them to comply with the law. Beyond that, my amendments would remove certain language which I think is unnecessary and problematic. Councilor Canal's ordinance goes into detail as to how the Portland Police will internally comply with this law and the state law. I think that, the Portland Police are already under instruction by the state law to come up with their own internal policies and procedures. And the Portland Police do not have a history of over-masking or under-identifying. So I think that it's appropriate for us to leave it to the Portland Police to complete that process. And partly that's because, and this is frustrating, but if the council issues prescriptive instructions to the police on how to do something like implement this ordinance, then we're likely to draw a challenge under labor law that we're trying to mandate things that should be achieved through bargaining. And that is a real threat, and that could result in the implementation of the legislation being significantly delayed. Right now, my understanding is that the police are negotiating in their bargaining agreement to incorporate the state law into it. So that is already underway. In addition, so my proposal would take out the part saying, here's how the Portland Police are supposed to internally comply with the law. In addition, my proposal would remove some of the language from Councilor Canal's provision on what the police are supposed to do when they encounter somebody who's doing something that would be illegal if it weren't done by a law enforcement official. My proposal says that, yes, they should take steps to determine if that person is actually law enforcement, and they should write a report on the outcome of that. And also, I specifically say that no matter what the outcome, the Portland Police should, if they see a purported federal law, any law enforcement officer who is wearing a mask or not wearing the required identification, that should be reported. And I envision that those reports could be used as the basis for a lawsuit that the mayor could bring. My proposal eliminates a lot of other specific language in that provision, in that section, which I think are unnecessary and legally problematic. I think that the specific directions to Portland Police increase the risk that we could have a labor law violation. And to the extent that Councilor Canal's provision suggests that the Portland Police can order federal agents what to do, which I think some of them are subject to that interpretation, then that raises legal risk under the Constitution. And I have checked with the city attorney, and they said that they do think that my language significantly reduces the risk on both counts. So, again, I want to pass something, even though I know that it's likely to be overturned. But I'm a sports fan, and I know that miracles happen. Just last week, the Houston Rockets had a 6-point lead and the ball with 28 seconds to go against the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Lakers came back and won. So I think this is a long shot, but we should try it because, as Yogi Berra said, it ain't over till it's over.
Thank you, Councilor Novick.
Sorry, Mr. President. I'm going to pass out a small amendment that Mr. Taylor suggested to us yesterday, just adding a few words to my amendment.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Smith.
Councilor Novick. Thank you, Council President. Councilor Novick just said something from a technical standpoint that our attorney told him something that his amendment was supposed to be better suited to not have a lawsuit. And I need our city attorney to come and tell us that. I'm not, could Robert Taylor come up?
I'd like to get to testimony before we get to technical debate.
But the idea, that's the last thing that they left with constituents, and that's in their head. So before they give their comments, I want him to give us this technical opinion, if that's true or not.
I would like to move to testimony, please, before we move to technical or clarifying discussion. So, Rebecca, can we please call the first panel of testimony?
I'd just like to confirm, Councilor, are we moving? I'm sorry, I thought the last speaker has joined online and
Yes.
sure the order of.
Great.
Okay.
If we could please call that person.
We do. We have Councilor Hwa-Jong Kim online. Councilor Kim, you can go ahead and unmute and begin.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Hwa Jung Kim. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a council member in Ward 5 here in St. Paul. I'm here to testify in support of the Right to Know ordinance. I was council vice president for the last 2 years, and just before Operation Metro Surge and after Metro Surge, I stepped down from the leadership position to spend more time in my community. So I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say I saw so many Portland frogs for Halloween, and leading up into our occupation, you all brought such a unique flavor to this resistance. And even though we didn't know what was coming in Minnesota, we wanted to follow your lead and make our own mark. And it's hard to translate what Minnesota has been through. But masked secret police were smashing windows and pulling people out of cars, leaving children strapped in their car seats and vehicles rolling down the streets. Entire neighborhoods were filled with toxic and painful chemical irritants meant to hurt and cause psychological harm. They would raid restaurants and pull children from parents' arms, and as you saw, use our tiniest residents as bait to bait parents out of their homes. They pulled elders out in Minnesota winters in nothing but their undergarments. Children lived in fear. Families and parents were being kidnapped off our streets. And it was all for the case of overt racial profiling. The daily violence was staggering, and the collective trauma was incredibly real. It was in my ward. They went door to door asking neighbors if they knew any Asian people. Just any Asian person in the neighborhood. So now more than ever, residents need to see that they can trust their local government to act, legislate, and lead powerfully. We have a tie in our state legislature, and local municipalities were more nimble to respond. But that doesn't mean that everyone took in the urgency. We watched in horror as ICE invaded your streets, and my office sounded the alarm, and trust me, we got pushback. Oh, it won't happen here. It's not worth it. We don't know what they'll do. And truthfully, we didn't know enough until it was too late. And I say that having helped train thousands and thousands of my neighbors, started mutual aid for rent, and kicked off some of our first grocery runs and patrols. In Minnesota, we proved that DHS and ICE are lawless, violent, and murderous. And it's wild to think that cities taking up the same kinds of ordinances that we passed are getting any kind of resistance. In St. Paul, we are a sanctuary city, and for myself, that means something. Our laws become powerful statements of our morals, not just because they are written, but because we have the courage to take action and expand the scope of meeting by bolstering those values through policy making. I led banning the staging or queuing in our city-owned parking lots and restricted access to non-public areas in our city buildings, which codified our cease and desist order. Similar to the ordinance before you today, we require all law enforcement to display their insignia and prohibit them from masking. The St. Paul City Council also unanimously passed an ordinance this last week strengthening our training, reporting, and accountability relating to federal immigration enforcement and our city employees. We provided prescriptive instructions. They are incredibly important. Every single department, including our police officers, wanted clear direction and guidance. And ultimately, we did not legislate based on threats of legal challenges. All of our ordinances were unanimous, and the council stands ready to defend our laws and protect our immigrant neighbors. What might be encouraging to hear is that we face the same legal challenges and considerations that you have. I know we like to think that we're all unique, but that just means that it's not just the right thing to do, but practical and responsive for local government. This isn't a risky thing to do. This is common sense. In Minnesota, we would say this is a pretty good thing to do. These ordinances help educate and inform your residents on what they can expect and should expect when encountering federal agents in their neighborhoods. Help them sift through the mass of mis and disinformation and give them solid information they can trust from all of you. This clarifies expectations to not only help calm the fears of your residents, but it also makes an impact. Families felt safer accessing resources at our libraries and rec centers. And it gave our lawyers and our city staff the ability to just tell folks to keep it moving. For those of you think that they were just going to, so some of you may think, well, they're just going to break the law anyway. And you're right, they will. And they showed up in masks anyways. But without establishing laws that can be broken, there can be no accountability. The hardest part hasn't been the gaslighting from the federal agency, from the federal government, but from the lack of urgency and action from our allies. The tragedy isn't the dysfunction of the federal government, it's the inaction of our local municipalities that don't utilize the power and levers they can control to do something. The downfall isn't authoritarian regimes enforcing broken immigration policies with impunity, but the indecisiveness of our leaders at every single level when given the opportunity to enact safeguards for our most vulnerable. I carry with me thousands and thousands of volunteers who have given so much of their time. I bring forward their hoarse voices of our immigrant communities crying out across the country to see their humanity. I implore you to pass this with no amendments. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you very much for being here.
Okay, I'm going to start public testimony. Sorry, we have a little timer issue. And quickly, for those signed up to testify, reminder, you each have 2 minutes. I'll call you up in groups of 5. For those in person, you'll see the timer displayed on the screen in front of the testimony table on the floor. And those online, the timer is in Zoom. You'll hear the timer ding twice. Once is a warning when you have 30 seconds left. The second is when your time is up. And I'm going to do one quick test. Okay, we'll start with Heather Hellman, Benjamin Gilbert, Jordan Lewis, Holly Brown, Samantha Ibarra. You can begin testifying when you get to the table.
I am Heather Hellman, pastor of Multnomah Presbyterian in District 4, part of Together Lab's network of pastors, and also a movement chaplain outside of the ICE facility. I'm speaking in favor of the Right to Know ordinance, and I have been working with Kanal's office and Together Lab on this ordinance for months. I keep showing up because as a faith leader, it's my job to advocate for those most affected by this cruelty. And I have heard from immigrant families themselves that this ordinance is important to them. We have heard that our police are the gold standard, and the mayor wants to show a safe Portland for businesses. But how can we make these claims while masked men are roaming our streets, making our neighbors too afraid to go to work, school, or even report domestic violence because they are afraid the police will act as ICE does? Beyond the unmasking of federal agents, this ordinance asks our police to actually respond to calls from our immigrant neighbors, be present, and document what is happening. The city attorney has said this policy is legal. We have seen Portland officers shake hands with DHS at the facility. We have heard one officer express support for the killing of Renee Good. This is a chance for our officers to make it clear that they do not support ICE. This is a chance to show that our police and leaders like yourselves don't use the vulnerable among us as a bargaining chip. Our immigrant neighbors need to trust that when they are in danger, the police will show up and try. They need to know without a doubt that the police are not working with ICE, and PPB has failed to make that clear. We have been beaten, poisoned, and harassed by ICE and their cosplaying fans. As we've tried to protect our neighbors, we're exhausted and angry. We need to know that you are all in this with us. This ask is actually simple. Make all officers easy to identify and make sure our police respond to calls and document what they can. This is how we start to build trust with leaders like yourselves and the police who have failed. It won't be perfect, but we don't claim a gold standard. Thank you, Councillor Kanal, for trying something. And thank you to all who supported this and brought this to the table.
Thank you so much.
We just go next? Okay. Hello, my name is Samantha Ibarra. I'm a organizer with PDXCD. I'm a first-generation immigrant and a Marine Corps veteran. I'm here to give public comment to demand the identification of law enforcement ordinance to be updated to include the federal agents in the mask ban. This is a performative and manipulative tactic. Although it has ICE in the problem, it's nowhere in the solution. It doesn't protect the community. It's just a Band-Aid to a sucking chest wound. And I know you know what that is. Kanal said in September of 2025 that he would put something out in weeks. It's April 2026, and also calling Nazi speech spirited is crazy. Only counting October and December, DHS claimed 1,200 people alone. This feels like a runaround for the city council that loves to prolong their heinous actions around our community, and this is another link for PPB and DHS to work together. The city councilor should be putting forward proposals to shut down the Portland ICE facility as a whole and not looking for sympathy on their digital footprint. Revoke the permit, and that will be the gold standard. I'm stay up here until I'm done.
Hello, my name is Ben Gilbert, and I am a volunteer lobbyist for the Portland Democratic Socialists of America and a tenant in District 4. Portland has a reputation of being a solid progressive city, but instead of boldly leading the charge for transparency and accountability, the mayor's office is trying to throw in the towel. The California decision is only a preliminary injunction. If we treat those as final decisions, we might as well carry Trump's bag in on his way. Public services must be accountable to the public, and that cannot happen if people aren't able to identify who they're interacting with. This is true for all levels of government. Law enforcement officers hiding their identities as standard practice also creates increased opportunities for impersonation. While the city's power may be limited in regards to federal agents, it is able to handle fake agents, but in order to do so, the police have to verify who's legitimate and who isn't. Obviously, this ordinance won't fix everything, but it is an important substantive step in the broader push to protect our communities. It's also important that the council reject the undemocratic antics of the PPA, who are constantly inventing outlandish theories about how they are not accountable to city council and attempting half-baked smear pieces against councilors. We would have thought they'd move away from these tactics after they were caught trying to frame Joanne Hardesty for a hit and run she wasn't involved in. This is the same group who complained about masking during the pandemic and have had a sudden, convenient change of heart on the issue. Both positions come from prioritizing the comfort of individual cops over the basic well-being of the community. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Jordan Lewis, he, him, volunteer lobbyist for Portland DSA, and I live and work in District 4. I'm here tonight in support of the full policy without amendments. I'm kind of tired of all the runaround, and we're constantly like, I feel like government just exists to tell people no, and there's almost this like giddiness in like saying no, like no, we can't do that, and I'm kind of tired of it. A lot of us have followed this for many sessions, and people aren't asking for the world. People aren't asking for a downtown tunnel or robust free childcare. They're asking to not be abducted and killed in the street. And like, why is this such difficulty? Come on, just let us go home. Let us move on with our lives. Please just pass the full thing without amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here.
Holly Brown is online. You can unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, hi, my name is Holly Brown. I'm a resident and worker in District 2, and I want to give public comment to demand that this ordinance actually applies to ICE. Currently, as it stands, it may say it applies to all agents, but how can that realistically be so when it has absolutely no enforcement mechanism and specifically tells Portland police to not interfere with masked federal agents once they have identified who they are, who they say they are? My concern is this is going to set up a situation that's going to be even more horrifying for those dealing with ICE violence. When they see Portland police walk up to a masked federal agent, talk to them, confirm their identity, and then step away and watch as bystanders while ICE violently kidnaps community members. In addition, by not building upon the state mask ban, which also has no enforcement mechanism aside from just civil litigation, we're creating a system where only those who can actually afford lawyers are able to receive justice. As someone who was slammed to the concrete by ICE in front of the Portland ICE facility and held in their detention center by masked agents, I, as someone who makes under $50,000 per year, cannot afford a lawyer. And I'm someone who's very well connected in activist spaces. So how will people who have even less access than me be able to find real justice when they're dealing with masked federal agents? It's not hard to see this as an attempt from Councilor Canal and others to get headlines saying that a mask ban was passed without actually doing the hard work to challenge ICE. We don't want any more performative measures. We want a real mask ban that requires Portland police to not just write a report, but to actually arrest ICE agents when they break the law. No one is above the law, and people are right. We are living in unprecedented times, and so we need the council to stand up and actually respond to these urgent times with urgent measures, and this just is not that. It's half-measured. And so I also really want to demand that you revoke the permit for the Portland ICE facility. Despite City Council saying you cannot, you can. We've read the code. Stop lying. Revoke the permit. Real mask ban now.
Thank you very
Next, we have Blair Glennon, Taylor Long, Eric Clark, E.J. Wilsinski, Jack Dickinson.
Come on up, folks. Feel free to introduce yourself for the record. Feel free to share your pronouns, and you have 2 minutes each.
You want to go?
Go for it.
Okay. My given name is Taylor Long, and I come out today to speak on the negligence of the current administration and the lack of concrete action used by City Hall. While our so-called representatives sit before us today having dragged their feet on any concrete action against the ISIS facility, nor implemented any real tangible consequences for the multiple land use violations at McAdams ICE facility, instead they pass a farcical mask bill that does not even apply to federal officers. All this entails further mingling of the DHS and PPB in the eyes of the public masses. This bill requests that PPB investigate whether a masked individual is suspected of being a federal officer. And then, if they are indeed a Fed, they're supposed to just leave the Fed alone and let them continue. So, nowhere in this ordinance is there any actual stopping of masked, newly recruited, anonymous, faceless federal officers from terrorizing the streets. No, this is just a civil proceeding. But hey, if you have thousands of dollars laying around, you could potentially sue the federal government. Oh, most of the people being terrorized are working class and low income and educators? Huh. ICE and DHS lead a fear and kidnapping campaign, not just in Portland, but in the surrounding regions of Oregon as well. Now, there will be even more direct ties between PPB and ICE. Honestly, I would rather you spit in my face than smile and continue to do next to nothing while criminalizing the protesters and citizens who stand in the face of this injustice. But don't forget, dear citizens, my neighbors and friends, that according to Judge Eric Tung, there is no constitutional right to be free from the exposure of tear gas, OPB 2026. So until there is actual action to revoke the ICE permit, McAdams remains not only a public health danger, as well as an environmental and economic danger. The federal government is holding our city hostage while you do worse than nothing. You placate the masses with fluff, stamping out the growing civic dissent with reactive legislation. They pass this mask mandate not for the safety of the populace or for the democracy they claim to uplift and uphold, but to save face and their own careers while the issue is trending, to bank in on civic heartbreak for their own gain, revoke the ICE permit, or resign. Stand for citizens, take accountability for your lack of action and the real deaths and terror that this inaction has enabled. We demand direct action by City Hall and Mayor Keith Wilson, and that they uphold the law, follow the wishes of your voters in your district,
Thank you.
revoke the permit.
Thank you very much for being here.
Members of the City Council, my name is Eric Clark. I'm a pastor who's been organizing on behalf of my faith community for greater transparency and accountability for law enforcement in Portland since at least 2014. Most recently, I've been among many clergy of a wide array of faith traditions who've worked together with Together Lab and PERC to provide accompaniment and witness for immigrants attending court hearings and mandatory ICE appointments. In these accompaniment encounters, I often simply walk with my neighbors to their cars or help answer questions or offer prayers for their safety. I am witness to their palpable fear of being kidnapped, of being whisked off the street by masked assailants that they have no means to identify or know what the purpose of their encounter would be. I have witnessed the belligerence of masked officers, I believe, emboldened by their ability to act without accountability and without the ability to be identified. I've recorded these encounters on my phone. I have sought as a clergy person to be there to de-escalate these encounters, to prevent escalation of violence, and to keep members of my community safe from being kidnapped. It's past time that we were able to unmask and identify the people who claim to exercise lawful authority in our communities and our society, and to kidnap and arrest and disappear members of our public and our neighbors. If this was happening in another country, you'd have no problem naming these people as secret police and these, detainments as kidnappings and disappearances. Not only is this the case, though, with our federal law enforcement, but it's important that this ordinance applies to our local law enforcement as well. Despite the testimony earlier of Councilor Novick, I have been witness to Portland police officers acting without visible badge identification, and the incredible difficulty it is for people in the protest community or in the public activist community to seek redress for harms carried out against us by our own police. And so it's important that the leadership come from our city council and that we have clarity and transparency from the top down. Transparency is a prerequisite of accountability to the public for our law enforcement agencies. Please pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is E.J. Wilsinski.
Each day, people are killed in this country with benefit of neither trials nor sentences. The majority are deaths without bodies. A single execution can unleash an international scandal. For thousands of disappeared people, however, there is always the benefit of the doubt. Friends and relatives make the useless, dangerous pilgrimage from prison to prison, while the bodies rot in the bushes or dumps. The technique of the disappeared. There are no prisoners to claim, nor martyrs to mourn. The earth devours the people and the government washes its hands. There are no crimes to denounce, nor explanations to give. Each death dies over and over again until finally, the only thing your soul retains is a mist of horror and uncertainty. Does this sound familiar? Because it's happening here. This is a quote from Eduardo Galeano, who survived the fascist takeover of his country in 1970s. And in January, I was detained by ICE. And from my holding cell, I noticed on every wall were big red posters that said, "If you're sexually assaulted by an ICE agent, call this number." Sexual assault is easy to get away with when they can keep their mask on and make you vanish. They prey on our communities, contribute nothing, destroy families, tear gas children, force our communities to burden horror and uncertainty. And then what happens? They clock out, take their masks off, and demand from us our food, our hospitality, and our bathrooms. Fuck that. This ordinance is about so much more than knowing who is policing you. It's also about giving our community the chance to administer social consequences for disappearing our neighbors. ICE wears masks because they are aware what they do is seen as abhorrent. Those masks allow them to be abhorrent while shielding them from natural consequences of their behavior. And to speak to my community, remember the names of those who oppose this ordinance. Tell those nearest to you who they are. They deserve the same social ostracization that ICE agents should be receiving. There has to be consequences for the technique of the disappeared.
Thank you.
Yep.
My name for the record is Jack Dickinson. I want to make 2 points today. First, there is an overdue need for this body to pass an ordinance. Fighting fascism is a group project, and as of this moment, Portland is the member of that group that is legislatively and executively speaking not contributing. Beyond protecting your own constituents, passing legislation allows other jurisdictions to learn from us, just as we are learning from them. As I reflect upon my own mistakes and errors, one thing that I have to reckon with is the fact that the tactic of protest I chose to use and helped legitimize in the last year has clearly enabled members of this body to sit for interviews and claim victory without having to actually pass anything relevant yourselves. You are our elected representatives, yet too often it has felt like we are the ones representing you. Second, this body has an obligation to exert its power when that power is contested. The Portland Police Association has claimed extraordinary authority in this instance as an attempt to bar you as legislators from legislating. It doesn't matter if you receive support from the PPA on principles. As members of this council, you must advocate for your own ability to function. I was reviewing statements from the PPA as I prepared to testify today, and there was one from last fall that really struck me. In the immediate aftermath of Trump calling our city war-ravaged, Aaron Schmautz used his position to speak with Fox News and advocate for federal intervention. While countless Portlanders were taking to the streets and to social media to point out the absurdity of Trump's lies that our city was burned to the ground, Aaron felt it was wise to go onto the network most responsible for fabricating those lies and lend legitimacy to them. The PPA clearly sees a lot of kinship between PPB officers and DHS officers, and I urge you all to critically examine who the association is really advocating for when it comes to legislation like this. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Blair Glennon is not here. I'm going to move to Amy Lestat, Joshua Dunham, Francis Barth, Vincent Hawkins, Tara Velarde.
Welcome, folks.
You can go ahead at the table, whoever wants to go.
Good afternoon. I'm Fran Barth, a resident of District 4, a member of the congregation with Pastor Heather, and a retired Portland Public Schools educator. I'm pleading with you to please pass the right to know who is policing you ordinance. I should be enjoying retirement, but instead I'm out on sidewalks holding signs, reaching out to voters and doing everything I can to help combat the violence and terror ICE has brought to our neighborhoods. I am still connected to the school communities I served, and I hear accounts of what our immigrant families are facing with ICE. The stories are chilling. The impact on the children is devastating, and the effects of living with this fear will last far longer than this administration. I see that families don't have faith in government systems anymore. They're scared of our local police, despite sanctuary laws being in place. These families want to see the city act on their behalf, and they support this ordinance as one step in working towards their safety. Making sure our police are clearly identified is the least we can do. Requiring federal agents to unmask is critical, and even if that doesn't happen, having the police show up to emergency calls that potentially involve ICE is an important step. Their presence and willingness to document what is going on will communicate concern and help build trust in our communities. As a teacher, I learned that to gain a student's trust, I had to clearly communicate care, be present with them, and listen. As citizens of Portland, we need to see our city leaders and police be present with us in this struggle. Passing this ordinance will signal to many in the community, especially the vulnerable, that you are listening, that you are trying everything you can, and that you are with us in this fight. Thank you.
Good afternoon, counselors. I'm the Reverend Joshua Dunham, a Presbyterian pastor, a resident of the Wilkes neighborhood in District 1, and one of the clergy that works with Together Lab. I am speaking in favor of the ordinance to add identification to the Law Enforcement Officers Code. I am here because there are Black and brown members of my community who feel unsafe to be here at this meeting themselves, because of the environment of fear that has been created in Portland by ICE's presence. I am here because I have worked extensively with the immigrant community in Portland, and this is one of the key issues for my members, my neighbors, and my friends to feel safe in this city. And I'm here because my faith compels me to speak out in support of what my Savior Jesus Christ says are the least of these. What you do to the least of these, you do to me. President Jimmy Carter once said, "The measure of a society is found in how they treat their weakest and most helpless citizens." Portland has a problem. We have time and time again not listened to our communities of color and have instead continued to marginalize them and say that their experience is not as important to our city as that of the white majority. This is the dark reality we appear to be unwilling to address in this supposed liberal utopia. It's a liberal utopia for white hippies and hipsters, but not for the poor or people of color. It's time to stand up and change that. President John F. Kennedy once said, "If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich." Counselors, if you say you support the immigrant community, it's time to put your vote where your mouth is and vote in favor of this ordinance. It's not the full measure of all that needs to change, but it's a good start. And let's finally start rather than kicking that down the road again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's more comfortable for me to stand and speak. I feel like we've been sitting for too long and not doing enough. My name is Vincent Hawkins. I'm a local emergency room nurse, an Army National Guard medic, and someone an unintended activist. When I had a mother bring her child in the morning to me, a preschool-age child, his face is red, dried blood coming out of one of her ears, who had spent the entire night awake, the both of them. Fearful to come into my emergency room because of the rumors at the time of ICE circulating around. That was early last year. And since that time, I myself have been nearly blinded by immigration agents who I will never know who it was. It's not my right to know. This proposed amendment needs to be passed. It needs to be the bare minimum start. There is no burden on federal agents. They've already detained someone. This is not California's law that requires a proactive approach that tells the feds what to do ahead of time. This is merely making sure that that person that's getting zip tied and dragged off like an animal is doing so under the authority of the federal government. That issue we will take care of separately. But at the very least, this council has the ability to direct Portland Police to do the barest minimum of their job. It is time to meet the moment. We can expect no, we should be prepared for no, and we should be prepared to ask them to do their job anyways. That is the barest minimum in this time, in this place. Thank you, councilors.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Tara Velarde. I live and work in Northeast Portland. I'm an organizer for Indivisible. I've been protesting down at the ICE facility for over a year, and I help organize the monthly Interfaith Silent Solidarity March to ICE. Asking law enforcement to show their faces while carrying out their taxpayer-funded duties is absolutely the minimum standard of transparency and accountability. If your job is to protect and serve the people, you do that in part by showing your face. Clearly identifying yourself helps reduce ambiguity and fear, and it decreases the likelihood that a bad actor will be able to impersonate an officer and abuse the public trust in dangerous ways. This is not rocket science. This is the bare minimum. It's basic common sense and public safety. No concealed identities, no secret police. It would have been unimaginable, unthinkable to me as an American child of the 1980s and the 1990s, in this, the land of the free and the home of the brave, that I would one day have to stand before my elected representatives and beseech you to use your power to protect the people of Portland from the dangers of masked secret police. Please do everything in your power to pass this bill.
Thank you very much.
Amy Lestat. We'll move on. Aaron Schmautz, Karen Chire, Marnie Glickman, Marshall McFarland, Minden Okan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
I apologize for not being there in person. On March, Aaron Schmautz, Portland Police Association President for the record. On March 18th, 2026, Councilor Samir Kanal, while discussing his opposition to a policy to abate human trafficking near McDaniel High School on Northeast 82nd Avenue over concerns of unintended consequences, gave the following assessment of the perilous nature of policymaking. One of the most dangerous things a person with decision-making authority can do is to recognize a real problem and say just, we have to do something. Because when you say we have to do something, you're really opening the door to doing anything. He continued, we have a responsibility to find a solution that addresses the problem instead of blaming another group of people. And what has been done here is taking an accurate assessment of the problem and going and finding a scapegoat. This is what has happened with the masking ordinance that was ripped out of community and is now before you today. We have to do something has opened the door to doing anything. But the solution proposed does not actually solve the real problem. And I'll note this is clear, listening to the very powerful, impassioned testimony today, none of the concerns that have been noted are actually addressed by this ordinance. This week, Mayor Wilson said in a memo that passing this ordinance is making a promise to a community, knowing that we cannot deliver on that promise. He stated, failing these communities will not make Portland safer. It will only serve to undermine public trust in our ability to lead. We wholeheartedly agree. The state legislature has already done the work passing the LEVA, which passes a statewide standard for officer masking, identification, and working. These standards, incidentally, were based on what PPV currently does. The first role of any government is to hear community concern and input, and then tell the truth about what authority we have, what is currently being done, and what work is left to do. This ordinance purposely obfuscates all those core points. And I'm going to run out of time. I've posted all the rest of my comments online. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Karen, you can go first.
I'm gonna have to. This is gonna be a real quick. Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Marshall Brandon McFarland, trustee for Ernest Leo Wordsmith Trust, testifying in support of Ordinance 2026-11 in lieu of my experience on April 27th. While disposing of litter in the North Park blocks, I was detained by PPB. A detention initiated solely on the unverified allegations of a supposed park ranger that never identified himself but had no qualms demanding identification. The policeman inspected my trust ID, acknowledged my status, and then chose to treat me with the same level of criminal manner historically reserved for those with an abundance of melanin in this city. This was not a mistake of fact, it was a choice of custom. Without cause or consent, they bypassed investigative protocol, applied physical restraints, and failed professional standards. This incident, filmed by multiple onlookers who knew the police were acting outside of their legal standards, highlights a systemic failure that the city will be held liable for. The policemen refused to relay their names, badge numbers, or bond numbers for any personal liability claims. Shushack used pain compliance to twist my wrist after I was already in handcuffs. When police lack the training to properly identify and respect the legal status of civilians, or when they act on unverified hearsay without professional accountability, they open the city of Portland to substantial liability. I see your vision, Councilor Canal. This is a good basis and it has to expand. This is a step towards transparency by demanding professionalism and accountability. Proper identification is the first step in ensuring that policemen understand their jurisdictional limits and the constitutional rights of the public that they serve. Because these policemen, especially Shushack, who made multiple misleading statements, failed to adhere to these standards, the city of Portland is now facing a formal notice of tort claim and a commercial lien for constitutional trespass and battery. I urge you to pass this ordinance and ensure that there is proper training on identification and recognition of statute to prevent future costly litigation and maintain the dignity of Portland's public spaces. Never mind the publicly drunk guy who was allowed to stumble away because of what could be going to be construed as racial discrimination based upon the demographics of the individuals that were in handcuffs. Vanport happened 80 years ago. Now is not the time to revisit it.
Thank you very much.
Greetings, councilors. My name is Marnie Glickman. I'm a resident of District 2, and I'm testifying in support of this ordinance. People who have restraining orders, people who have been stalked, and who are survivors of domestic violence often already live in fear that the individual who harmed them will return. Now, all those perpetrators have to do is put on a gaiter and a tactical vest from Amazon, and they could take someone right off the street in broad daylight. Bystanders would probably assume it was an ICE detainment. I am one of those people who has a restraining order against my former husband. I'm one of those people who fears he will violate the restraining order and return to harm me. He is forbidden to possess or purchase firearms or ammunition while the restraining order is in effect, but he is no fool. He knows that a good way to get close to me would be to pretend he's an ICE agent with a firearm and ammunition. If a bystander saw him and called the police, would Portland police even come if there was a chance it could be ICE? Do you realize how frightening it is for us that the answer to that question is maybe? If we don't act and pass this ordinance, we're enabling imposters to hide behind anonymity to terrorize us. We need our local law enforcement to do more than just assume that masked individuals dressed like ICE while breaking the law are legitimate. We need them to actually verify that those individuals are law enforcement every single time. The city should not abdicate its responsibility to protect Portlanders. Please pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Karen Chi-Ray. I'm a veteran, a business owner in District 4, a resident of District 3, a lifelong Portlander, and a member of Stadium Hood. And I'm wanting to know, what types of masks are you requiring for them to not wear? If we're talking about medical masks, there's no way to ask people to take off their masks due to HIPAA reasons. I've seen several people in here wearing masks today. I know that when you're asking one particular class of people to not wear a mask, it's kind of discriminating against all the other people that we see around town wearing masks. So if you're going to ask law enforcement officers to unmask, then I think everyone should be unmasked as well, and that includes people at protests, at marches, businesses, and on our streets, just walking downtown or around town, so that we're all safe. And I say this only because part of the reason is we had a burglar to our business. The burglar was wearing a mask. He was outside my business for 2 hours and broke into my business, bled everywhere, stole $8,000 worth of product. And when we found him and had him arrested and he was released, he ended up not getting prosecuted because they couldn't identify him because he was wearing a mask. So please, let's include everybody in this unmasking and not just law enforcement officers. So, and we don't have the resources for PPB to monitor all these people wearing masks either, or document or take reports. I mean, they could barely show up to my business when I have actual crimes. So unless you're gonna fund more officers, we can't afford to have them take time doing mass patrols. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Minden's online. Minden, you can go ahead. Minden Okan, you can unmute and testify.
Oh my gosh. Hi, can you hear me?
We can
We
hear you.
can.
Sorry. I was supposed to be there, but I couldn't make it because I didn't want my daughter to possibly get maced by counter protesters and police not do anything because they tend to not do. But I just want to say thank you to Councilor Canal for this, and I hope that you guys do pass it because it would be a step in holding Portland police accountable for, you know, everything that they're doing. I don't have a speech, but I do have a story because, you know, I do a lot of community stuff. And just not too long ago, Portland Police was at Jefferson High School while they were having a talent show or whatever. And a bunch of kids and their families and everything traumatized and terrorized because Portland Police showed up with their masks on. And, you know, in the times that we're in right now, people don't know if it's Portland Police, if it's ICE, if it's somebody coming to kidnap them or possibly harm them. So I think this should pass. Even though it's something little, it's still a step in the right direction to holding Portland Police accountable for, you know, whatever they're doing. Because I have seen Portland Police work with us. I have seen Portland Police show ICE their phone and I show them their phone. And then next thing you know, see somebody get detained. I have been followed by Portland Police as well. And I have this fear of the police possibly, you know, pulling me over, detaining me, and then handing me over to ICE. And that is what they are doing, is detaining me. So yes, please pass this and hold them accountable. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much.
Irvin Syverson, Kaylee Roll, Kip Silverman, Sarah Fisher, Patrick Alexander. Kip is online. Kip, you can go ahead.
Yeah, hi there. Hello, City Council. My name is Kip Silverman. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a resident of District 2, and I'm also a trained PERC legal observer, and I fully support this ordinance. When a law enforcement officer of any origin interacts with an individual human being, that person they're interacting with is not guilty of anything. Nothing has been proven yet in a court of law. The most basic accountability possible is being able to see that person's face so you can identify them and to be given information to prove whom they are and to be able to follow up as someone who is being accused of something, much less being accosted, dragged, detained because they have a certain look about them. This is basic. The idea that a human being who could lose their life figuratively or literally by someone claiming or legitimately a law enforcement officer, but refuses to be identified or accountable is morally reprehensible. My adult children who are not white are stressed out, yet they refuse to hide, but they don't feel safe in the city they call home, which is Portland. An Asian friend of mine carries her passport around, and so on. These are real people and genuinely impacted by the present state of things, and not passing this legislation goes against everything this country and our city supposedly stands for. The mere idea that we'll keep our head down or shy away from a legal fight that might be unsuccessful means we're willing to sacrifice people who are in real and present danger. Standing idly by is complying, and that's unacceptable. Don't be cowards. Fight every way possible. Thank you, Councilor Canal and Murillo, for bringing this forward, and the rest of City Council, please vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Kaylee. I'm a tenant in District 4, a member of Portland DSA, and work as a registered nurse at a hospital in District 3. When I'm at work, I wear a badge with my name and my picture, and below that, another badge that says RN in big letters. This is to increase patient safety, transparency, accountability, and professionalism, while members of our community are in my care. In fact, healthcare workers wearing an ID is a law in Oregon and has been since 2005. That law states a healthcare practitioner working at a healthcare facility and providing direct care to a patient shall wear an identification badge indicating the practitioner's name and professional title. Just as my patients have a right to know who is caring for them, members of our community have a right to know who is policing them. In a time where unidentified and masked agents, ICE agents, are terrorizing our immigrant neighbors, this ordinance increases transparency and accountability, which is crucial at beginning to manage these federal agents who are acting with impunity and are out of control. This ordinance also helps protect our community against people masquerading as law enforcement officers for the purposes of robbing, kidnapping, sexually assaulting, or even murdering residents of Portland. Portlanders need to be able to tell the difference between law enforcement and human traffickers. This legislation is not going to undo decades of institutional corruption embedded in our law enforcement agencies, but at the very least, it serves as a necessary first step to accountability and transparency. As a union member myself, I ask that you not allow the Portland Police Association's absurd claims about this needing to be bargained with their union stop you from protecting your constituents. I also ask that you not allow fear and distrust to further spread in our communities when you have the power to make a difference. Law enforcement who walk around with guns and have a huge amount of power should at the very least be held to the same standards as healthcare workers like myself. I urge you all to vote yes for the bare minimum guidelines for transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sarah's online. You can unmute and go ahead, Sarah.
Good afternoon, counselors. My name is Sarah Fisher. I'm an Episcopal priest, and I pastor a community in Montevilla Park on Sunday evenings. Here's a story I told the Public Safety Committee. In 1967, my parents were peacefully protesting the Vietnam War in New York City, where my father was a university professor. The police stood by while counter-demonstrators began to throw things into the crowd of peace marchers. This concerned my dad, and he wrote down the badge numbers of several officers. Suddenly, 3 of them jumped on him. "Get the paper," they shouted. He had the note card in his hand. One of New York's finest bit him on the thumb to retrieve the card. They arrested him for disturbing the peace and arrested my mother for interfering. I remember him coming home with a bloody bandage on his thumb. 6 months later, the case against my parents was dismissed. The officers were never charged. My father and his community of marchers were not safe because he could not identify police officers he felt were failing to keep the peace. I like to think that that was then and this is now, that we've come a long way in 60 years. But it is still true that none of us is safe if we cannot know the identity of those who have the power both to arrest and to harm. Most of you are used to hearing me testify on behalf of safety, livability, and dignity for Portlanders living in extreme poverty. What is good for our poorest neighbors is good for all Portlanders. This ordinance is critical for keeping our whole community safe. Without transparency and accountability, there is no true community safety. Please stand up for your community and public safety for all by voting yes on this ordinance. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Irvin Syverson or Patrick Alexander? Jeremy Beausoleil Smith, Eva Hamer, Ted Bascom, Sean Rice, and Tony Alvarez. Eva's online. You can go ahead, Eva.
Hi there. My name is Eva Hamer. I'm a resident of District 3, and I'm here in strong support of this ordinance. Anybody who has the power to stop, question, or detain another person on the street must be identifiable. It's really the bare minimum of accountability in a democratic society. You're hearing today members of your community, your neighbors, and your constituents telling you that we're living in fear, not knowing who's at the door, not knowing who is taking us or our neighbors, and this is terrifying. This ordinance is fully reasonable, and I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Jeremy Beausoleil Smith. Masked law enforcement agents in 2026 are a symptom of the same white supremacist system that produced the runaway slave patrols in the 18th century, union-busting goon squads in the 19th century, and the Ku Klux Klan in the 20th century. These groups all masked their identities. This country was born out of a white supremacist principle, and until we finish the work of post-Civil War reconstruction, the cancer of white supremacy will continue to metastasize. Just like the Confederates of the past, ICE agents are cowards, only preying on the vulnerable when they have numbers and can operate anonymously. If ICE agents aren't ashamed of what they're doing, then why can't we see their faces? If they're afraid of retribution, then maybe they should ask themselves why people so viscerally disagree with what they're doing. Is it possible that they're the terrorists, the thugs, and the murderers that they falsely accuse immigrants of being? No one is illegal on stolen land, and the borders are imaginary lines that we have drawn in sand. The time, energy, and resources put towards this reign of terror against immigrants are unfathomable. Our country does not lack resources, it prioritizes cruelty. The tactics used in these state-sanctioned abductions are the same tactics that will be used on political activists and anyone who dissents from Donald Trump's fascist agenda. Let's make it known that these masked marauders aren't welcome here and pass the law enforcement masking ban. Thank you.
Very much.
Good afternoon, councilors. I'm Padre Tony Alvarez, Associate Rector for Latino Ministry at St. Michael and All Angels in the Hollywood neighborhood in District 3. I'm also the child of Mexican immigrant farm workers, and I'm new to my position as well as new to Portland. Last fall, as I was attending a series of dinners in my Spanish-speaking parishioners' homes, time and time again, I heard stories about them staying home from work, dodging ICE raids during their lunch breaks, going around the grocery store just to make sure that they were safe going into the store. I could see the fear in their eyes and the discomfort around the dinner table as they discussed the goings-ons in their lives with their new pastor. I urge you to vote yes for this ordinance. It is the bare minimum that we can do to make sure that those who are policing our most vulnerable communities are held accountable. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you very much.
Sean, you can go ahead online.
Hi, counselors. Thanks for taking the time. I'm Sean Rice. I'm in District 3. I fully support this ordinance. I hope that you vote yes on it. We do not live in an authoritarian regime, or at least, we're not supposed to be. And unfortunately, we cannot trust the federal government to do what is right or even what is legal anymore. So this is, in my opinion, the first step, hopefully the first step that y'all can take to prevent continued violent fascist actions in our city. So thank you so much, and I hope that you vote yes without amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Juliet Dunn, Edith Gillis, Jeanette DeCastro, Beatrix Lee, Kirsten Fredrickson.
Welcome. Come on up.
You can go ahead at the table. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know what the order was. Good afternoon, counselors. My name is Beatrix Lee, a Portland resident testifying in support of the ordinance to enforce law enforcement identification standards. I'm here to uplift the voices of community members who did not know what alphabet soup letters of a law enforcement officer who is brutalizing or kidnapping them, which is deeply concerning and withholds accountability, especially when filing for civil litigation. Black and brown communities especially are unsafe from all law enforcement, especially unidentified ones. I want to echo the voices here in saying identification standards for law enforcement is the bare minimum. Asking for identification for who is kidnapping us when no one should be kidnapping us is a small demand. We ask that city councilors continue to assess and implement further bold, ambitious policies to ensure community safety, police accountability, and divestment from the carceral system to protect our community. While ICE exists, they need to be identified, but the end goal should be abolition of ICE and divestment from policing and instead investment in alternatives to community safety. I also urge you to stand with protesters who are demanding to abolish ICE, as we shouldn't misinterpret or ignore the language of the unheard, but listen to the urgency of the matter. Thank you for championing community safety and for your time, and urge councilors to vote yes to pass this ordinance.
Thank you very much.
Edith is online. Edith, you can go ahead and testify.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
I am Edith Gillis. I live in District 3. Since October 5th, 2006, I have been demanding of each and every city council member and mayor and police commissioner that we do far more than this. So right now, pass this unanimously quickly and to get on with the next steps. What I've been saying is we need to protect Portlanders, our economy, our civic engagement and trust by having all those who claim to be law enforcement from any jurisdiction, any nation, operating within the limits of City Portland, be clearly identified, their faces uncovered, their last name and a small short identification number, clearly visible on every item of external clothing and gear and equipment and their vehicles and bikes, so we know who they are, matched to a website that has their face, their silhouette of their body, their title, their supervisor's contact information, their training, how many complaints and accommodations have been against them or for them. We need to start with this. In October 5th, 2006, There were multiple federal agencies. There were private security and military, county and city police who used multiple kinds of weapons. Many of those, many times that anyone by themselves could have killed me. We don't know which of the many killed me. That was because they knew they would be not held accountable. They were not identifiable. And the city of Portland has been wasting lives, safety, trust, and money by allowing this to continue. The entire history of the Portland Police, let's stop it, and let's prevent anyone from having any jurisdiction in court, any testimony in court, or any ability to
Thank you so much.
or detain someone.
Kirsten Frederickson, Melissa Reed, Gail Brasher, Chris Branger Munoz, Air Usitalo.
Welcome, folks. Whoever wants to go first, jump right in. Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay. City Councilors, I'm the Reverend Melissa Reed. I'm a resident of District 3 and a part of Together Lab's Clergy Caucus, and I'm speaking in favor of this ordinance without amendment. I'm here as a Christian pastor and in particular today as a mother. I'm here because of my 17-year-old son Jack's best friend. For safety, we will call him D. Like my own son, D plays high school sports, but he is also an apprenticing barber, already starting his own business cutting his hair, all his friends' hair. Jack always looks fresh because of D. Unlike my son, D is responsible for doing all the grocery shopping, errands, and earning money for his family because they can no longer work out in the community for fear of being disappeared by ICE. Like my son, D has struggled to attend school regularly. My son has mental health struggles and suicidal seasons that in part stem from living in a society where his best friend's parents might get deported, the climate is on fire, and the future feels violent with fewer adults to count on. Unlike my son, D has to worry about his own parents' safety on a minute-to-minute basis and carry the weight of supporting his family. Unlike my son, D has to worry about being racially profiled and disappeared himself by the very people paid by his parents' tax dollars to protect him. Recently, D dropped out of school because the pressures were too much and he needed to cut more hair to invest in his family. This should not have been the main priority of any child in our society. D should be playing football, giving his teammates fresh cuts after practice. D should be in school learning skills to support his growing business. In December, a group of clergy met with the police chief and the head of public security in a local synagogue, and they told us there is nothing we can do to interrupt federal agents. And last month, in this work session around this ordinance, we heard that there is a legal way for police to interrupt the anonymous nature of ICE presence. And in that session, these same public safety gentlemen, and they are all men, made excuses as to why this policy is hard. It might cost $50,000 to get all the police force new badges. We might end up in legal battles.
Thank you. Sorry.
They don't have enough of a voice in crafting the policy.
Sorry.
My kids could raise that $50,000. It's time for them to get to work, and it's time for you all to get to work.
Thank you so much.
Is it my turn?
Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Air. I am a teen. On February 1st at 7 p.m., I was tear gassed and almost shot with a pepper ball by an unidentified agent at the Portland ICE facility on McAdam and Bancroft. I will probably not know who that is because they were masked. This is an experience no one should have to go through. We must know who is on our streets and terrorizing our community members. I also demand that the permit is revoked and ICE is removed from Portland, and demand justice for anyone who has been falsely detained by ICE and DHS. It is not something that we should have to be living with in this society. I will leave you with words from Dr. Maria Cui. We are not here to beg for our rights. We are here to take them back.
Thank you very much.
My name is Gail Brasher. My pronouns are they, them. I'm not from any lobby or a leader of my community, but I am a student living on campus at Portland State University, which sits only a MAX station away from here. PSU has made it clear that it's an anti-ICE campus, and yet despite this, ICE officers or even imposter agents are still able to treat people like animals if they simply hide their face and claim they have the authority to. I have heard of incidents walking to class where just down the road, fellow students and rally members have had tear gas thrown at them. The targets of ICE and ICE impersonators, immigrants, people of BIPOC and LGBTQ+ identity, and those deemed dangerous or wrong are not numbers, statistics, or simply strangers for me. They are my classmates, my teachers, my friends, and my dorm mates. And even on a supposedly ICE-free campus, there is still widespread fear and uncertainty across campus. Make this ordinance pass, so that we not only have a bare minimum of accountability for law enforcement and for people to know who may threaten their safety, but that the people, many of them straight out of high school, actually take an ICE-free policy seriously in an environment where future leaders, workers, and yes, even representatives are taking their first steps in education and community involvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chris Branger Munoz. That concludes testimony.
Okay, colleagues, it is 4:05. I would like for us to take a quick 10-minute break, so please, everybody be back here at 4:15.
Have a good little walk.
And we are back. Colleagues, we are now going to move into discussion. We have two amendments that are going to be presented, and we can move into also technical or clarifying questions. Councillor Canal.
While I know there's people who may still leave over the course of this, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for the testimony. Thank you for being here regardless of your position on it. I really appreciate everyone sharing their stories. I'll just take the opportunity to formally move Canal 1 at this time, and then we can continue the discussion.
Great. Councillor Canal moves Canal 1. Is there a second?
Second.
Councillor Avalos.
Second.
There we go. Councillor Murillo seconds. I would have given it to you, Councillor Avalos, but you weren't there. Okay, colleagues, to the Canal amendments. Councillor Novick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have some questions, and I apologize. They may not be completely addressed to the amendments as opposed to the original, but so cut me off if you think that that's a problem. Under 2330-040, credible indicia of law enforcement authority, It says proof of identity and a person has credible indicia when they have both proof of identity and proof of authority. Proof of identity and authority may be determined simultaneously when the government identification, and then you crossed out, such as driver's license, possessed by the individual claiming law enforcement authority, includes a name and photograph as well as law enforcement agency affiliation and face brief covering. I know you got rid of the term driver's license, but do you intend that this means that PPB officers, when dealing with somebody who's doing a law enforcement-y thing, will always request a photo ID?
May I respond, Council President?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The short answer to that is no. So it is accurate that what you said says that. And it's the reason, by the way, that we took out such as a driver's license is because if you read lower down, it says as well as law enforcement agency affiliation, and generally speaking, a driver's license doesn't have that. So that was just a clarification there. Like, it's not generally going to solve that, and it's kind of things got copied, pasted together, 8 versions. With relation to the process, credible indicia of law enforcement authority as it relates to verification, I want to be clear about that part, is an off-ramp, but not the only way that it ends. And what I mean by that is the actual thing that stops an investigation, a preliminary investigation, from proceeding to a full investigation, as written, and this is about 10 lines down from there. It's in the amended version. I'm not sure which version you're working on, but we're looking at B and C of the next section, so lines 190 and 211. The thing that prevents it from moving on is absence of reasonable suspicion that a crime is being committed, or is maybe, or has been committed. And one of the ways out of a preliminary investigation is the presence of credible indicia of authority. So it's not required in that scenario, but it is a way out. So the answer to your question is no.
Okay, on that point that you just made, here's one thing. The way I read the amended version, it says this section applies when a person is engaged in conduct that would be unlawful for a civilian, but would be lawful only if the person was a sworn law enforcement officer. When a PPB officer observes such circumstances, the officer should make reasonable effort to determine whether the person is in fact a law enforcement officer acting under lawful authority. When a person has credible indicia of law enforcement authority, under this subsection, PPB officers will detain, restrain, et cetera.
Yes.
But then it goes on from that to say, officers will conduct a preliminary investigation, period. So that suggests to me that even if they show up and somebody is wearing all the required identification, there still has to be some sort of investigation.
I don't think that's accurate. I understand the sequencing might lead to that in terms of just the physical order of those sentences. And thank you, my senior policy advisor is coming up here. But the reason for that sentence, when a person has credible indicia, this is line 185 to 187 in the
May I raise a point of information?
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand which copy of this that we're talking on, because you've got, there's not as many red lines in the updated April 30th, so it's a little difficult to know exactly where the counselor's at. I'm trying to understand. Is the April 30th the one I should be reading, even though there's fewer red lines?
Yes. I don't know that there are fewer red lines, but I'm going to verify that.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing a bunch of red lines on his copy, and now I'm wondering if you guys are talking about 2 different copies of an amendment.
What I have is Canal Amendment 1 as amended last night. So I still have red lines in red from the original amendment, but blue lines in blue for the changes. That's what I've got.
Can I ask a point of information, I think, related to this? The copy that says April 30th has red lines, purple and blue in it. Mm-hmm. Are the changes that the amendment is intending to reflect all 3 colors?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is, I'm not really sure why there are 2 colors. I know why there's a third, but to answer Councilor Green's question, if you go to the website, you go to the item, the first thing under exhibits and attachments, proposed amendment, Councilor Canal 1, updated April 30th, 2026, is the file I'm using right now. Councilor Novick, are you also using that file?
To be honest, what I'm using is a paper copy, yeah, that says changes in blue are in 416, changes in red actually this thing, it's the opposite, or in the new 429, updated 429.
Okay.
I don't see different colors.
Yeah, we can share screen. I can.
Me too. I can share screen.
Are we allowed to share screen?
Require.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
So the version I have online does have 3, but I don't know how everybody's print copies or anything like that are working here. So can everybody see what we're looking at here? I'm gonna zoom in a little more.
Looks good.
Takes me back. All right, so Counselor Novick, to your question, you were asking about, I'm scrolling down here to line, I think it's 190 something here. Yeah, so when a person has credible indicia of law enforcement authority under this subsection, that language is designed to assuage the concern that had been expressed earlier that PPB officers would be interfering with people once they're confirmed to be law enforcement of some variety. But the idea is PPB officers shall make reasonable efforts to determine whether the person is in fact a law enforcement officer acting under lawful authority. And then it goes into verification procedures under this chapter shall be implemented. And then B describes how that goes about. And I'll note that the colloquial, I'm not a lawyer, colloquial difference for those who want to understand what the difference is between a preliminary investigation and investigation. Again, speaking lay terms here, it's am I free to go? Whether or not the answer is yes or no. So preliminary is the person is free to go, does not require reasonable suspicion. Full investigation, which is part C further down, is if reasonable suspicion exists. And that's where a person might not be free to go. And this is the potential imposter.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say that based on, as you said, based on the sequencing here, I think that what you got says that when a person has credible indicia of law enforcement authority, there won't be any detention, but it still looks like there have to be a preliminary investigation. Because it just says officers will conduct a preliminary investigation, period.
I'm going to let my policy advisor speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. Jack Jaden, she, they pronouns, Senior Policy Advisor for the record. The preliminary investigation, there is a preliminary investigation. What's required during that portion, and we recently reformatted it thanks to a meeting with the Public Safety Service area when they looked it over and said, we really want to know what we're required to do and in what order. So it starts with alert this, like say that starting now, the preliminary investigation begins. First thing to do is alert a supervisor, then contact the potential agency's dispatch to find out who this person could be. And then everything after that is a may. They may do, and then a list of examples. That is the definition of the preliminary investigation.
Okay. I understand that, but what I'm trying to get at is the way I read this, even if PPB shows up and they see that the person is like not wearing a mask and wearing identification and wearing a uniform and displaying a badge and all that stuff, they still have to then undertake something called a preliminary investigation. That's the way I read this.
So far under your example, they see somebody, you said with a badge or without a badge?
With a badge, with everything, the whole
The
shebang.
badge. So then if at that point they see indicia, so a badge would be in the earlier section, what's indicia? These are all things that are informing the officer of whether this person is a law enforcement authority. So as they see things and note things, and these officers are highly trained to look for different signals that aren't listed here, they're recording those down as it says in documentation period. Indicia is just a list of different things that they could be looking for to find that credibility.
Okay, but I'm still stuck on, you're saying that no matter what they see when they first arrive, they still have to conduct something called an investigation.
Correct. And the definition of that investigation is a call to dispatch and then anything else that they want to do in that list if they choose.
Do they have to call dispatch even if when they show up, they see that they're wearing all the required badges, identification, et cetera?
That's not that's not the intent here. I'm trying to jump around to where you're pointing, and so we'll get some clarity on that for you. But sorry, there's obviously a lot of.
Yeah, this again applies to, it says officers will contact possible agencies or dispatch centers to verify their authority, period. And it is not, I'm sorry, that's line 193 and 194. And it doesn't limit that to situations where the person was not wearing initiative authority. So the way I read that is you always have to call the agency no matter what you see when you're there.
Run that by Jack Jaden for the record. We can run that by Mike Porter, our attorney who helped compose this section.
Okay. Okay, I was about to ask something which isn't really about the amendment, so I'll withhold it. I mean, those are my principal questions. One thing, if I may, I want to ask is a couple of the people that testified said that this would require when the police to call up when they get to show up when they get a call about ICE or imposter activity, and I don't see this. This to me only applies in cases where PPB officers happen to observe that activity that would be unlawful if not for if a civilian was doing it. It doesn't seem to require BOEC to dispatch anybody.
Yeah, thanks for that. This is something that came up in one of the more recent conversations, and it's around the scoping section. So this is 180 through 189. And part of the reason for moving that down was to where it says PPB officer observes was to create clarity around this because this, as I mentioned, came up. So I think it does not explicitly say BOEC. I think the understanding here is that if someone calls into BOEC and says a crime is being committed, they generally do dispatch somebody. That's common practice. That's a rule. And so I'm not particularly concerned about the lack of the 4 letters being in there.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I think that some people have testified and some people I've heard from say a big problem is that when people call BOEC about this may or may not be ICE, there's a kidnapping, then nobody shows up. And you're saying you don't agree with that. You think they do show up, they are dispatched.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the fact that we would add this in, to me, gives me some assurance that there'd be reliably that would occur. I know we have someone here that can probably speak to that. If we have a former BOEC director in the room who's now DCA, so in terms of how they'd interpret that. But I know that we don't get involved. So you and I, Councilor Novick, in the Community and Public Safety Committee, we've talked about priority levels. We've had reference to ProQA, the software that they use. We don't legislate a priority level. We're not getting that deep into the weeds. So that's the concern here is how deep into it do we go? If we're saying PPB should reliably and consistently verify, I am not, given that statement, I think that includes the rest. What I'm putting
okay,
there, but
I really don't understand that because what this says is we do these things when a PPB officer observes things, and it doesn't say that PPB has to show up to observe anything.
So you're looking for more clarity on whether or not explicit language is required?
Yeah, I'm just saying that as I read it, it doesn't address the question of what happens when somebody makes a call. I've heard the people in PSSA say, no, we do take those calls seriously, but I know there's people in the community that say, no, they don't. So I just want to clarify that as written, this doesn't directly address that.
Point of order, is Bob Causey in the room? Because perhaps he could answer this question, what does BOEC do if someone says ICE is abducting someone? Thank you. I just figured you'd be the person to ask rather than us arguing amongst ourselves.
Yeah, Bob Causey, DCA of Public Safety and the former BOEC director. Steve Maudsley actually wanted to be here today. Unfortunately, he's ill, and he did send some clarification on behalf of BOEC. And thank you for the question and desire for clarification. Yes, and it hasn't changed since I've been there. When BOEC receives a call, whatever that call is, the dispatchers process that call. They triage it and send appropriate help. It's entirely in policy, and they have reminded staff a couple times, especially surrounding the recent federal activities, that BOEC is responsible to take calls, triage calls, and send help, regardless of if it's tied to an ICE related event.
But I mean, have you heard, I mean, you understand the folks out in the community just don't think that's true. They think that people are making calls, and when BOEC hears the word ICE, they say, you said ICE, so we can't do anything.
Yeah, and I had heard that and asked Interim Director Maudsley to look into that to make sure that the staff are very clear on what the policies are. And what I'd like to share with the community who are concerned about that is, let me know when things like that happen, because we investigate every complaint that comes in and make sure that we're providing the service according to policy.
I asked for permission to do this. Since Mr. Causey is here, there's something else I want to ask him that sort of has to do with the underlying and one of my amendments.
Sure.
Mr. Causey, the last time we had this up, you said that you thought that the requirements that are in the underlying for what PPB does to implement this law and the state law would be costly. Is that still true given the current version of this, or has there been changes made that eliminate any costs to PPB from the way this says you have to comply with this law and the state law?
Yeah, there is a particular cost specifically for numbered badges for PPB. I'm not sure the exact amount, but badges in particular, they're not name tags. They are their actual badges that they wear on their uniforms, and they would have unique identifiers. So in order to replace those, there is a per item cost for every police officer.
Okay, now would you have to do that under the state law anyway, regardless of whether this law existed?
I am not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Novick. Councilor Pertolini to the amendment.
Thank you, Council President. I thought when I asked previously if the purple and blue and red are all part of this, that one of my colleagues was reading from a note at the top of a version talking about what the purple and blue each relate to, and I don't see that in what's online. So I just want to make sure that what is online is actually what we're voting on. Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, yes. Let me verify.
Okay. If it is in fact the part that's online, there's a fair amount of change here. I am.
If I may, Jack Jaden. Robert Taylor had pointed out that on our clean copy, we did not update it with the red line copy. And so this afternoon, we overcorrected and hit accept all changes, and then it accepted the changes of the red line copy. So we're just going to go ahead and resend the red line copy that was there earlier today.
So, Councilor Knoll, Council President, I am perfectly willing to give a courtesy vote to make the version that we debate, the version that you would like us to debate, Councilor Knoll. But I just want to be clear that we are going to be voting on something that I have not had the time to evaluate, and that courtesy vote is not a broader support. I want to just.
And that's perfectly fair.
Okay.
I do obviously hope everybody supports the overall thing eventually, but I understand that in the context of what we're talking about.
Understood. There are a lot of changes on here, and it sounds like we're getting even a new version, and I think we're moving toward voting on this today without time to look at it. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Councilor Pertolini. Councilor Green.
Yeah, excuse me. I move to limit the debate to those already in the queue.
Do we have to vote on that? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Green has moved to limit debate to those in the queue for Amendment Canal 1. Does that require a second?
Second.
There you go. Councilor Green has moved to limit debate. Councilor Murillo has seconded the motion. Is that a debatable motion? No, I don't think it is. No, so can we please move to a roll call vote on the motion to limit debate?
Cannell.
Sorry, I was just checking something here in the rules.
Your nerds count.
It's not debatable. Yeah, I'll vote yes. Yeah.
Pertolini.
Yes.
Ryan.
No.
Koyamaline?
No.
Murillo?
Yes.
Novick?
Yes.
Clark?
No.
Green?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
No.
Avalos?
No.
Smith?
No.
Dunphy?
Yes.
So we have a 6-6, 6 aye, 6 nay.
Okay,
So
motion
the
fails.
motion fails.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Councilor Green, are you still in the queue? No.
I support the amendment. I hope we can take a vote on it. There's more amendments on the floor. We have 21 minutes left.
Thank you very much, Councilor Green. Councilor Canal.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to get everything updated. Thank you for clarifying that. I had not seen that. So I just want to kind of walk through a little bit of what we're talking about here. There's a lot of clarification of terms. Councilor Novick brought up one, which is the such as a driver's license. There's a piece of distinguishing a little bit better when authority is being verified as opposed to identity, which is maybe used in a colloquial sense, and so clarifying that. There is updating, and this is lines 55 through 80, updating the definitions of facial covering to align with the state. And that's where this amendment started, is updating to align with the state. Because our definitions were sourced from other places, and so one thing that had come up was, does a standard issue PPB jacket, which zips up over the chin, cause a problem? That issue we would have figured out, but then the state adopted a definition that figured it out for us. So literally copied and pasted that in. By the way, that also, to the testimony's point, retains the right to use N95s and things like that. Medical masks are completely exempted and okay as per the state law. It updates the definition of extreme or severely inclement weather, again, aligning with both the state law and the request from Public Safety Service Area. Updates the definition of other exemptions on like undercover covert operations, things like that. I'm in 90 to 113, just walking through now. Getting some other requirements in from the state law, in 115 to 119 as well. As you get a little further down, and this is where I think the color change is relevant, we're clarifying terms and also aligning here. And this is where the badge comes in and the question about replacement. And this got updated. I want to thank the PPB leadership who spoke to the question. We had PPB currently has a badge, physical metal badge, right? And then a name tag. Name tag is a Velcro patch on it, and we had written in here originally first initial and last name. They currently use last names, so we aligned it with the directive they already have to have it say last name, so that would not require replacing that particular piece of equipment. I recognize there'll be another question around other potential cost impacts, and I'm not trying to moot that, but just that one thing we resolved. Let's see, scrolling down here. Again, clarification language, nothing particularly major as I'm getting down below. Changed like officers will preliminarily investigate to will conduct a preliminary investigation. That's the sort of stuff. And then adding in another piece, and this is line 205, to be very clear, and this is something that Councilor Novick had asked a question about in committee, about ensuring that we were clear that only when reasonable suspicion develops is there the option to get to a place that can involve restriction, interfering with, or otherwise depriving a person of liberty or freedom of movement through physical force or show of authority. So these are things that we're basically aligning with the state and then taking the feedback that we got for the operational side. I don't want to go through all the little tiny one-word things, but I wanted to just clarify that particular piece. So that's what it does. Again, I think there may be stuff that you want to amend after that. Obviously, Councilor Novick has put up an amendment. The idea behind this is start the debate with the updated version because we hadn't had a chance to do these updates between March 6th 17th when the committee first heard it, or most recently heard it, sorry. And then when LEVA passed and was signed into law on March 31st. And then I mentioned everything else, so I won't really reissue it. But thanks, that's the explanation.
Thank you, Councilor Canal. Councilor Novick to the amendment.
Yes, and I want to say that, like Councilor Pertolgini, I plan to give a courtesy vote for this amendment in order to start off with the sponsor wants to, but I just want to return to something that I stupidly missed in my earlier discussion about when officers have to conduct a preliminary investigation, which is on line 192, the previous language, when the person lacks credible indicia of authority, is crossed out. And now it just says, PPB officers will notify a supervisor and investigate the situation for a potential criminal act. And again, I read that as meaning whenever PPB observes somebody doing something to be illegal, if a civilian was doing it, no matter what initiative of authority they have, they still have to notify a supervisor and investigate the situation for a potential criminal act.
Do you want to, Councilor?
Yeah, I think that part of what is really important about this ordinance is preserving the ability to do data tracking on how ICE is operating in our communities, because when it becomes a public report, that will also be available to organizations that do rapid response for when, how, and why ICE is operating in certain neighborhoods. And any federal officer or any person who is kidnapping people who is masked, who is unidentifiable. So I think that's why it's really important to keep this, and that's part of what differentiates it from ordinances and policies that came before it. I personally feel comfortable with the amendment that Councilor Canal has brought forward, and I would like for us to vote on it, because I also feel, frankly, profoundly uncomfortable with Councilor Novick's amendments, which were also just filed yesterday afternoon. So I know firmly where I stand on some of these things, and I'm ready to take a vote and finish the amendments today so that we can move to a second reading.
Thank you, Councilor Murillo. Councilor Canal?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Councilor Novick, your amendment, and this is related to my amendment that I'm asking the question. Your amendment uses the starting point of mine to make the track changes. Is that correct?
My amendment uses the starting point of yours as of yesterday afternoon. So that's something I should raise. Actually, I mean, what I'm going to distribute in my amendment is sort of a clean copy of what the whole ordinance would with my amendments, but we have not had time to go back and use your new version to do the red line on it.
Okay, so we can coordinate that based on whatever happens with mine,
right.
To ensure that happens. Yeah, I think the text that you brought up both right now, Councilor Novick, and earlier about when the person lacks, I think this is one of those things where it can be interpreted as if and only if a person has it, do we get off of it? And therefore, when you lack, you must continue the process. And that's the clarity that we were trying to create. And it may have created a different type of uncertainty around it. So I'm trying to make sure I have a version where I'm like trying to see it without track changes just so I can read the exact words. But that is something you and I had talked about following the committee hearing on this. So I want to make sure it was in response to that.
Okay. Seeing Councilor Zimmerman. There we go.
I just want to make sure we're voting on Canal 1, which we heard we're going to see finally later. It's because I understand there was a Scrivener's issue or something, but that's what we're voting on right now is an item that we don't have in front of us.
Did that get to?
I'm PDFing it right now.
At this moment, that is accurate. Hopefully, it will not be accurate after a few minutes.
Okay, and
just for that,
there was a lot of back and forth there. So this sounds like, from your position, Councilor, as the sponsor, this is cleanup based on a variety of engagements or conversations or hearings. Do you find any of these changes to be substantive in terms of what the outcome of the change would be? And I think, you know what I mean, right? There's like some where we're like, we used the wrong word, but like, are there substantive changes in here from what we had before?
Yes. And I can explain each and all of those, but I think I'm not going to try to undersell this. There were adjustments based on LEVA in particular.
Based on LEVA.
Yeah, there may be one or two that aren't based on other feedback, and I think I walked through
To
those.
come
ones
more
a
in
moment.
compliance with LEVA?
Yeah, so for example, the definitional changes would have an impact in the sense of the hood thing is no longer, I don't know if that would have been a concern. I think it's not anymore because now we align with the state.
Okay. I was kind of thinking after LEVA passed that you were going to propose an amendment that quite literally just like took a city version of 4138 and put it in here. This is more than that.
That is correct, and that is accurate. Your point is accurate, both of them. The LEVA copy paste is specific to the masking piece. I want to just be clear on that, because from the identification piece, we also had PPB directives, so that were source material.
Okay, got it. And so does this new amendment change anything with our current laws that have to do with before this current President Trump era, right? If somebody was impersonating a police officer, that was a crime, and we see that kind of cosplaying thing happen where somebody will try to pull people over. It's always really strange and kind of gross. Does this change any of those laws for the laws that they have right now in terms of how they intervene if they believe somebody's impersonating a law enforcement officer? Or is this like another layer or above and beyond or a separate chapter? I'm trying to understand how it fits into that part.
My understanding, and this is legislative intent as well, is that it does not change in any way the definition of what constitutes the crime.
Okay.
And frankly, impersonation or kidnapping, anything like that. It also does not change what occurs after reasonable suspicion exists, meaning what a Portland police officer can and could do. We list out some, you can do this kind of language, but that's within the scope of what would already be happening.
Okay.
And I'm being precise because I don't want to say something broad. I want to understand your question.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I think from an amendment standpoint, versus the underlying, sorry, it's because this is like an amendment to the underlying. I almost wanted to go into that, but I'm going to stop just on the amendment piece. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Zimmerman. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Question. Some of the direction that you're giving the police to do in terms of, if we're talking about ICE, they don't necessarily have to do that, even if we do put this ordinance through, because we don't direct ICE. That is something that Congress does. And am I correct on that?
Can I clarify which thing you're specifically referring to, Councilor Smith?
Anything that you have in there, anything.
So I'm going to just talk through this in two categories. There's the mass and identification piece, which I think we've all heard about the question around how the Ninth Circuit may or may not affect that. And I want to respect that there are differences of opinion on what may happen, and that also, as far as I'm aware, none of us have a crystal ball on that. On the verification piece, there is actually not direction being given to ICE in any way. The entire section refers to what PPB will do when faced with a potential impersonator. And so it doesn't specifically name or direct in that regard.
Question while we're still on this, do you believe that it's going to undermine public trust in our ability to lead as a police department? That is the direction that the mayor gave us. And, I'm inclined to agree, because you got two conflicting issues here. You got federal laws, and then you have state laws, and then you have a local ordinance that is very similar to the state LEVA, but it actually does a little bit more than the LEVA, and I'm concerned that our public safety officers are going to be confused by what they should do. And it appears that we're being supportive of these parallel tracks, but they actually do different things.
Thank you for the question. This gives me the opportunity to say I think the purpose of this is literally the opposite of that. I also think that if you listen to the testimony, that increasing public trust in local government, I don't know that anything we can do here guarantees increased trust in the federal government, and I don't know that that's a realistic goal. And I want to be clear, there's a lot of attempt to, there may be ancillary effects, but it's not predictable, it's not governable in that sense. But in terms of public trust, and why would we trust the federal government right now? But as it relates to local government, I do think that having the commitment to these rules that PPB will follow, and I think there's a premise here to some of the questions that I think is kind of strange, which is I don't assume that when we pass a law governing PPB conduct that they're going to violate it.
Okay.
So I think that once we have it and then it's followed, that does increase public trust in local government.
Yeah, and I think that the chief and through the bargaining units, we should be directing what PPB conduct is. And for me, this is really rubbing up against that line.
So just to talk about this, we wouldn't actually be doing that because we're not actually involved in the bargaining structure. But I think that's a broader conversation.
I mean, ultimately, we are because we make the decision at the end of the day. We do.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Smith. Councilor Koyama-Lane.
Thank you, Council President. Okay, I'm trying to look at all the updates and just a couple things. Can you explain how Canal 1 has a clear definition of preliminary investigation? How is that? What changes does that make?
Yeah, sure. It's basically the idea of preliminarily investigate versus conduct a preliminary investigation. That's the first thing. There's some clarity in terms of moving a portion up to better distinguish between the things that will happen and the things that may happen. There's just clarity of what we're asking and what we're not in if they pursue the third of those options. And then there's an additional text that was designed to reflect feedback from the Public Safety Service Area as well as from committee members that unless reasonable suspicion exists, the Portland Police are not being asked to intentionally and significantly restrict, interfere with, or otherwise deprive a person of liberty or freedom of movement through physical force or show of authority. So it's one of like 6 places where we say, basically, unless a crime is being committed, there's no interference happening with the potential impersonator, potential law enforcement agent.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful, and I have what I need to vote on this amendment.
Thank you. Colleagues, we got 3 more minutes, and then we are going to continue this item. So hopefully we can get to a vote on Canal 1. Councilor Maria.
Yeah, I'm ready to call the question on this amendment.
But don't actually call the question, because
Okay, can we just vote? Great.
You have to be at the queue.
seeing no one else in the queue, can we please call the roll on Canal 1?
I call Canal 1, moved by Councilor Canal, seconded by Councilor Murillo.
Yes.
Councilor Canal.
Aye.
Pirtle-Guinea.
Aye.
Ryan.
No.
Koyama-Lane.
Aye.
Murillo.
Aye.
Novick.
With the caveat that although I think that this amendment in some ways improves the prior, in some ways I think it makes it more confusing as a courtesy to move things along, I vote aye.
Clark.
No.
Green.
Aye.
Zimmerman.
No.
Avalos.
Aye.
Smith.
No.
Dunphy.
Aye.
And the amendment is approved with 8 aye votes and 4 no votes.
Okay, colleagues, we have 2 minutes left. We now have an amended ordinance. We have Novick has a number of amendments as well to introduce. And we're going to continue this item in 2 minutes. So, Councilor Murillo.
I move that we vote on all of Novik's amendments as a package right now. I reviewed them all. They were filed just yesterday afternoon.
Okay. Counselor Murillo has moved Novik's amendments as a package. Is there a second? Does not appear to be. Oh,
Can be the slowest council of all time if we would like.
Counselor Avalos seconds. Okay. Colleagues, discussion to the amendment or to the motion. Counselor Zimmerman.
This is inappropriate, and this is a line we have seen the counselor from District 3 take many times when she is frustrated by debate on an item she would like to rush through. This would be the most egregious example of that, and unfair to, frankly, the entire point of this body existing. And I think it's just bubbled over. I think with a 1 minute left before you want to table, Council President, it would be best perhaps that we put this to bed for the night and come back when we are our better selves.
Thank you, Counselor Zimmerman. Colleagues, I am going to continue this item to a future date as a continued first reading, and I am going to adjourn us without objection, I'm going to adjourn us for the day. We are adjourned.